Good morning around this part of the world, and good evening stateside and the Americas. How are you all? Sorry for the late start. State. Yeah, there was a state with the actual StreamYard. It just wouldn't load the camera for some bloody reason. So I had a few issues with it recently. A bit annoying. Stoned ape just sounds good. Okay. Are we talking about high ape on high? Or are we talking about, stoned literally? What sounds good to you, Richard? Good morning, Deborah. I'm still half asleep for some damn reason. I did go late to sleep last night, 2 o'clock in the morning. I've been a bad boy. So, yes. Norman and Magan, Dung, Umaga, Harry and Co. That's Filipino for good morning. Good morning to you as well, Norman. Oh, maybe it's Megadung or Umaga. Maybe I'm pronouncing it now correctly. Okay, I was trying to basically anglicize it, not thinking in the Bahasa Filipino. Anyway, Richard's into that spirit as well. Yes, he's he's not in the afternoon yet. He's only 2 hours ahead of Tasmania. So while it's 22:11 here in the morning, in the... My hair's a bit puffy. Just quickly trying to get myself ready. That's what happens when you sleep late or go to bed late. Yes, it's basically 12:40 now. But if you said, okay, you guys are still talking about language. Okay, I'll leave you to have your chat, and I'll leave my dyslexia to sort of settle down before it gets really out of hand. So you can poke fun at me, as I know you will. Anyway, Tracy, how are you? Yes, and all our carny pals that are here. Yes. We do have some low carb ones and a few others as well that do visit. I even have some vegetarian subscribers that do slightly more animal-based vegetarianism for their health, which is good. But yes, the majority of us are carny tarts. Some more than others. Like Richard. I'm letting out secrets. Anyway, so Deborah's got a question. Okay, Deborah. Can tinnitus, hearing loss, be a symptom of oxalates? Hard to say. I know that actually with my tinnitus went away when I was doing the high dose of taurine, and it seems that we have no human trials with taurine and tinnitus, however you want to call it. I call it tinnitus, others call it tinnitus. But there is rat research which shows when they induce tinnitus in rats, they can restore there with high doses, which would be equivalent for humans about 30 grams per day for a number of years, seems to fix it. Now, I had mild tinnitus, and I was taking sort of 20 odd grams for my heart, and it sort of sorted itself out. I think it probably was 5 years after, maybe 4 years or 5 years after having taken these higher doses of taurine, that it actually just went away. I didn't even notice it. It was really strange. It was only after somebody had actually spoken to me or brought up the tinnitus issue, then I thought about, hold on, I haven't had tinnitus now for many years. What happened? Yeah. And then I did a bit of a deep dive and found that there was some rat studies. Yes, they're not human trials, so we can't actually claim anything in terms of humans, but we can claim that rats will definitely have their tinnitus eliminated. Yes, ameliorated, as they say, as the scientific term. That means reduced. Anyway, so I got this last year, and just a few weeks ago, it went away. I've been doing citric acid B6 and 6 grams of taurine. Okay. I have seen issues regarding the eyes. You know, people having oxalates come out in their eyes, and it has affected their vision, and then it goes away once it clears up and all that. But I've never heard about hearing loss or tinnitus. So possibly, could be, possibly. Obviously, those things that you've taken will help, and obviously that's probably ameliorated the problem or eliminated largely the problem. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, thanks for the heads up and bringing this to my attention. I'll take a bit of a look and see whether there is any literature in relation to tinnitus and oxalates. There may be some stuff out there. I'm not aware. I know that, joints and stuff like that, a lot of the arthritic joint issues and all that are related to oxalates, and the micro fractures that cause on the inside of sort of the knee sort of cuff. So, and those micro fractures can open up over time under stress, those fractures, and over time they can actually be exacerbated and actually can affect this sort of also the production then of hyaluronic acid within around that to create that sort of spongy sort of protection of the joint. So I know that oxalate does that, and I know that oxalate does problems with the eyes and vision and many other things that seems to cause derangements, and even it's associated even with cancer. It actually can make cancer worse. So it definitely is a problem in the body. Plants are definitely going to cause a whole lot of problems. I would not be surprised if, because if tinnitus is another one of those problems that may not be the cause directly, but it can be either exacerbated or brought on by something like this, causing some problems in the tissues associated with tinnitus. So, and it's just really strange. Some people will get skin rashes or get more of it coming out in the skin in different areas. It's one of those things that's really hard to. Oxalates is one of those toxins that is definitely a problem. We need to get it out of our diet, but dumping can be a big problem as well. So yeah, I would say that it's probably definitely good to try and eliminate that sort of stuff. Yeah, and I think you're on the right track. But yeah, I will look into it. I'm intrigued now. Johnny, how are you, mate? Mango, always a pleasure. Sandra, good to have you here. And Ryan Levere, always a pleasure, mate. Good to see you. It's been a while. Is there a perfect donus for meat? Maybe medium rare. That is the most nutritious. Look, we cook our meat and we extract more nutrients from cooked meat. That's why we started cooking meat a long time ago. And you can eat more cooked meat, so you can get more nutrition as a consequence. Because you're you're pre-digesting in a sense by breaking down some of the fibrous stuff, so you can actually digest much easier and more quantity of meat. So that's the advantage. But there are, you know, advantages, like you'll have slightly more taurine in raw meat. Fermented meat will give you some important lactobacillus probiotics. So there's a lot of other things that we can do, and humans have been doing for a very long time. So I don't, just say, I do sometimes have fermented meats. I do have some, obviously fermented cheese is an animal fermented product. These things are good. I usually have my meat generally medium, medium rare, sometimes rare. I've had a blue, but generally I tend, just because of the way I end up cooking it tends to be medium rare. I sort of mistime it. It's more mistiming than anything else. If I make it rare, I will eat it. Blue, occasionally. I like, if I'm making like blue, what I do is I will pack shitloads of salt. I'll do it like New Yorker style, shitloads of salt and pepper on top, and on the other side I'll pack it in. I'll use a sort of like some sort of like a serviette or whatever. I'll pack it in so it actually connects, and then I'll cook it at high temperature. And what it will do is it'll actually fuse those flavors through the meat and all that, and then I'll let it rest, for for like 10-15 minutes. I'll let it rest. It's come out of high temperature. It's really inside, bubbling all the water molecules, and I'm going to let it rest, and then that will actually weaken those fibrous sort of tissue in it as that happens over that 15 minutes, and then it's really nice and tender and with flavor. So, depends how you want to do it, in that regard. So obviously you have to have a good plate to actually generate a lot of heat to basically sear that the sides and actually get the flavors through. Obviously a lower temperature, it's not going to do that. So it's all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I do enjoy that sort of stuff. So and there are various things that you'll get cooking. You can eat more protein, you'll get more protein, you'll get a number of nutrients. Some nutrients go up, some nutrients go down. It's a funny thing in that regard. So you can't say there is a clear benefit of one or a clear benefit of the other. Probably medium rare probably is sort of the middle ground of both, in a sense, or rare, medium rare, around there of both. So, but then there is the fermented side as well. So there are benefits in that as well, to occasionally have some fermented foods. We've been doing that for a very long time. And even the Inuit, they will ferment fish for the same purpose. Well, not only the Inuit, but even a lot of Scandinavians have fermented fish meals. So it's well known. So definitely not a problem whatsoever. Flight F0000 has been cancelled. Just kidding. Hello to you as well. And yes, I think that's what she said when she put the taurine, when she put the other stuff in, it actually resolved the issue. So that's a good thing. That sorted that problem out for her. But it probably was a transitory thing, but it's really intrigued me because I've never heard of a relation or an association between tinnitus and oxalates. So that's a new one for me. I know if eye vision it can cause blurry eye vision and problems like that. Severe stuff has been known to cause like cataract effects. So there is these sort of things that can actually cause problems in the eye once you eliminate that problem. And obviously the eye has a very high concentration of taurine and it's depleted by oxalate in the eye. And the eye, if it doesn't have enough taurine, your vision will suffer as a consequence. So actually restoring the taurine levels in the eye will actually fix it. I think it's because of, the UV that's coming through is actually causing some level of oxidative stress. That is why you need far more DHA and taurine in the eyes to protect the eyes. So these are things that protect the eyes from things that can cause over time degenerative eye disease. So an animal-based diet will give you those nutrients to protect your eyes. Now, that's not a claim. It's just basically an extrapolation from the nutrients that the eye holds. So if we want to take an eye from any species and then look at what exactly things were in it, we would find certain things were much higher than other tissue, and they usually tend to be DHA and taurine. So we know that they are definitely needed by cells in the eye. And we know that taurine from other research reduces oxidative stress and also problems of that sort. And we know that UV can induce oxidative stress. So we know that these are playing that role in reducing those deleterious effects. And severe oxidative stress over a prolonged period of time will cause more tissue damage. So, yes. Oh, well, there's another fan of raw meat. Yes. We won't go into the type that she likes, but anyway, she's a fan of raw meat. Anyway, let's move on before I get into trouble, Michael. How are you, Michael? I was hoping to take that. I suspect you're talking about the BPC 157 body protection compound. Once for the shoulder. Yeah. Yep. Good idea. The 2 months, 3 months off, 2 months on, and then not until the next year. We don't want too much angiogenesis. That means new blood vessels growing. We just want to help for the period of time, and not beyond. So, yeah. Anyway. Antidepressants. Okay. Triggered yours. Oh, that's in regards to the, is that the tinnitus? Tinnitus? Yeah, oh, that's right. You were, yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not aware of that. So that actually triggered you. Okay. Well, I know it actually affects, the brain chemistry in that regard. So, yeah. Yeah, serotonin, noradrenaline. I'm trying to think of the other ones anyway, but yeah, it does have an effect. Yeah. It may also, I haven't really looked into some of the pharmacokinetics. I know that, look, there are some things that interact adversely with taurine, which tries to regulate these things inside, all our chemistry. But then we go about all our electrolytes and stuff like that. But what do? We decide, well, we're going to use contraindicated medication like blood pressure meds. We're going to use things like lithium and all that for depression and stuff like that. And, obviously these things don't work really well with certain animal nutrients like taurine. So, yeah, they can be a problem. I know they're not very well prescribed, some of these in Japan. I wonder why. Because they don't need them. They're having fish, which is very high in taurine. They're getting the effect without requiring some of this medication. Yes. Those cheeky Japanese are getting away with it with their fish consumption. God, they're not following the program. What is wrong with them? Yes, they're outliers. They are the paradox of Asia. Yes. Taurine guzzlers. That's all I can say. Ugh. Elizabeth, how are you? Happy Harry. God, crazy Harry, you mean? Harry, I have more results in muscle mass by taking leucine before meal on an hour before plus taurine. Why is that? Because it helps. See, when you're fasted and you're breaking down, remember, you're protecting as well from oxidative stress, the muscles. You're still getting the effect of the actual exercise, but you're reducing some of the reactive oxygen species and also reducing lactate levels so you can train for longer, because taurine actually forces lactate through the Krebs cycle. Forces pyruvate through the pyruvate dehydrogenase through the Krebs cycle and prevents it from basically going any excess by increasing the efficiency of the Krebs cycle, the TCA cycle, the citric cycle, however you want to call it, by 30-odd%. It actually basically able to push more of that through complex 1. And also, even though there is a bit of an increase in reactive oxygen species, it's tempered down by taurine, which means that you actually then have less breakdown of muscle and more buildup of muscle, the effect. And you're also protecting, you're preserving, you're reducing that sort of breakdown, so you then end up with building more. So yeah, and that's why I've said to people, take a bit of leucine, a bit of and also vasodilation, like citrulline helps as well. It sort of is a supporting role in terms of nitric oxide and better function, better pump. And so that, together with the taurine 90 minutes before doing exercise, so you get perfusion throughout the whole body, then yeah, you will get much better results. So yes. Anyway, so pretty much that is it. Even in a fasted, remember I did the video on leucine, even in a fasted state, completely fasted, taking leucine increased muscle protein synthesis, or protein synthesis in general, the whole muscle skeletal. So pretty much, yes, it does do it in all animals, including humans. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. And remember, even when you're in a fasted, you're actually in autophagy, you're actually throwing off, you cycle autophagy, is a pulsatile effect. And as stuff comes out of, different proteins and all that, all the junk that's coming out, that can be recycled and reused. And if you've got a bit of leucine in there as your pre-training, you'll grab onto that and force it into protein synthesis, which is fantastic. So, so there are what I call the dirty fast training. You've heard me before say that. So that's really what it is, a little biohack to get more protein synthesis and bigger muscles. Yes, even old farts like me can build bigger muscles. Anyway, Simon. Hi, Harry. I'm confused. Sarah, is this somebody else you're talking about? Okay. Hi, Harry. Do you think thyroid issues could be regenerated on carnivore? Also, do you think degeneration of the spine could regenerate on carnivore? Look, all these things can be improved. We've had a lot of people in the carnivore space that have actually resolved a lot of their disease issues. One of the people that usually is occasionally on my channel, he's away I think today, but he's a young fellow, Brazilian guy. He had Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and pretty much I got him to get on a carnivore diet, taurine, to take taurine, and to also get his vitamin D levels up to the high end of the normal. And pretty much his Hashimoto's is gone, and he wasn't able to build muscle at all. And now he's really got a big, he's very muscular. So he's able to overcome that whole thing, being on a carnivore diet, getting his vitamin D levels at a good level, plus with taurine to improve a whole lot of systems, but also because you still need things like, what are the key things like in the thyroid? Nutrients. The two key ones, there are secondary, but the two key ones is iodine and selenium. What are the best sources for both of those? Animal foods. And in particular, selenium, unless you're going for, now the problem with Brazil nuts, you can get excess amount, which can cause negative effects to your thyroid, or you can get too little depending on the soil. So it's a hit and miss. With animal foods, there's a certain level of concentration, which is nice. And so eggs are a very good source, and a number of others for selenium, and most meats have good levels of selenium. So if you're eating, you'll get enough. You won't get too excess, but you'll get enough of both those nutrients. I've done videos covering those points. And if you Google my name and iodine or selenium, you'll get all the information, sources, how they, the different ratios in fish compared to mercury, and how they also help with chelating through selenide, which is a sort of a modified version of to chelate these excess minerals that shouldn't be in there, like too much manganese or things like that, or copper or whatever else. So they have that role when it comes to excess sort of stuff. And so I think that if you do generally, now there can be some issues with spine, because the biggest problem with the spinal area, is we don't have enough blood vessels. So we can't actually get nutrients into those areas to sort of regenerate. So it's really hard to regenerate spines once they're damaged on inappropriate diets and lifestyles. And that's a big, difficult thing to get around. So even he's been forced. Now, if it's in an early stage of deterioration and it hasn't progressed to really, there are, being on a carnivore diet will provide the nutrients to help maintain and protect and prevent any further degeneration. But there's a couple of other things you can do. Now, there is a thing called BPC 157, body protection compound. What it does is it helps all the collagen structures. Remember, bone is mineralized collagen. So how can this help? This could also create new blood vessels and also angiogenesis around and help heal these sort of things. But it won't work with the tablets. Tablets won't work. You can actually, if you go onto Amazon and look up, you will find that there are injectable types. You have to get the injectable type, and you have to find somebody who can inject it into the area where the problem is, not directly into the spine, but around it. It will get there, and it will start basically providing some support for that. Now, there's only rat studies when it comes to that sort of research in terms of spinal injury and BPC 157 injectable. I don't have any human evidence for that. Completely zilch, nada. So I'm saying it may work. Give it a try. 2 months doing it. The sort of injectable type, it is expensive, the injectable stuff. I'm just telling you what it is. But it seems to have helped people with knee problems, the injectable stuff and all that. So people have actually injected directly into the knee area, and they've improved their arthritis. So it definitely does help. Whether you're going to get the same effects around the spinal area, got no idea. I've got no research for humans. But in rats, it seems to work, where they break their tail or break part of their spine, and they're literally dragging their body, and then they heal them with direct injections into the area. Can't tell you that it's going to work for humans, but I can say it will definitely work for a rat. So if you classify yourself as a rat, it may work for you. It will definitely work for you. So yeah, that's all I've got on that, based on the most recent research that exists. But obviously, remember, our muscle skeletal structure is made of collagen and muscle tissue, which has got muscle fibers and stuff like that. All these things require protein. Bones are mineralized protein, and your muscles are mostly made of protein. So if you don't have those things, and cholesterol as well, obviously, for the muscles and other things, things like boron is really good. Now, you don't want to take it too high, because it can actually induce things like deficiencies in potassium and magnesium. So what you do is you take about 3 milligrams. That's it. I usually have people do high doses like 12, come down after a week to 9, then down to 6, and then to 3, and stay at 3 for 3 months. And that's for purposes of normalizing hormones. But for people that may want to take it for a longer period of time, you may have to take a trace mineral with it, just to make sure you're not causing yourself some sort of trace mineral deficiency. So if you're going to take it for a longer period, but it does help with bone density. Taurine also helps with bone density. B12 helps with bone density. I just haven't made the video on it, you know. So, and this is the methylation, where if you've got an MTHFR methylation issues and you're losing too much B12 to convert homocysteine back to methionine, is a problem. That's where choline comes in and ameliorates that. It spares B12 for other purposes, the brain, the bones, and other things. And so you may, by taking choline supplementation, you can spare, because it goes directly into the methylation cycle and avoids having to go through the folate cycle. So it spares folate, it spares, and your folate levels will normalize, and your B12 levels will go much higher, really high, which is great, because then it will be used by the brain, will be used by the bones and all that, because it'll actually come down again as it's being used by this other tissue, by especially the enzymes as cofactors and whatever else in those tissues, which means you'll get better results for those other tissue types, especially if you're in an older age bracket and you've got less efficiency. If you deplete certain things, you're going to have less capacity to make certain systems in the body, healing systems, work better. So if you spare those things by taking a choline supplement, you only need about 1 or 2 grams of choline. So if you're taking, for instance, choline whatever it's called, you know, always a tongue twister for me, bitrate, you're only getting about 41.1%. So you need to get about 1.2 grams. You need about 3 grams of that. So you get one of those little, some of the supplements do have the 3 gram scoops, especially the creatine ones. I just use my creatine one, and then the choline one, same thing, you know. I just shake it a bit to make sure there's no from the other supplement going in anything. Just shake it and then use the other one, and I've done it. Bob's my uncle. So yes, but definitely, you know, carny diet is going to be very, very important. Yes, exactly, precisely. Johnny, 4 canned fish in spring water. Yes, do not ever oils. Is there not idea because of the plastic lining? Depends on the brand. Aluminum fat is already oxidized. Look, I don't actually use canned fish, very rarely. And if I do, I make sure I'm using ones that don't have any of this sort of stuff. I actually do a bit of research on them, so they don't have any of the lining. They tend to be the old-fashioned method. You will find in some Eastern European countries, and you will find in some countries in Asia where they use the traditional methods. You know, it's the old. And those sort of cans can rust. So if you keep them out for too long, they will rust because they've got none of the lining or anything like that. So it's that old-fashioned type canning methods. So if you can find that, a lot of the commercial stuff is not. I generally don't use a lot of canned stuff, because I just go down to Salamanca. There's an outlet that will sell me, Tasmanian salmon. I can go down to the waterfront, which is about 5 minutes walk from that shop. And there's another outlet there with all the fishermen come in and they bring their sardines, like big long sardines or short or small sardines for the day, or, that they've got, or they may be frozen and they've brought them out and they've got them in there in the display. So you usually, say, give me 250 grams of sardines. And I'll take them, and together with other things that I'll cook, I'll consume them. And I usually will throw them all into a bowl with a beaten egg, and then I'll take them out, and actually, because I've got just a plate there with some of the pork rind. I buy the pork rind, which is unflavored, which is just and cooked in, not seed oil, but cooked in, lard. I get it on iHerb, and then I'll actually just coat those and then fry those. That's how I usually do them, and I just use ghee for the frying, which I get from an outlet in Hobart that actually gets it from India. So it's Indian ghee. So it's traditional, it's organic, traditional, no other crap in it. It's got nice flavour. I get that sometimes. Sometimes I did used to get one from Byron Bay, but I actually enjoy the subcontinent flavour one is much better. I think it's because it's probably the different, I don't know what it is, but it actually has got a much nicer flavour. So that's what I use to get there. There's Lukey. Luke Gear, how are you, mate? Here's the fellow that basically had Hashimoto's thyroiditis, just for those, as I was mentioning before. Anyway, so for some people, there are issues with parasites and all that. I do have a whole playlist of parasite videos covering a lot of things on parasites, so do check them out. That's what you need to do. Last time you guessed I had a gene that made me sensitive to sulfur. I checked, and I do indeed have an upregulation of CBS C699T, gene, and they are familiar with that one. Choline still the advice. It's I would use to excess to methylate the excess. I definitely use choline, and that should reduce that issue. Now there is I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the bacteria. I had it. I've got it somewhere. I think it's on my home work computer because this is my home computer. I need to remind myself. I've got a couple of things on my home work computer that I look at on my breaks that I forgot to bring home. So, or email them home. I should email them home. But anyway, I'm running out of space on my drive. Anyway, that's another issue. I'll put them on memory stick. I'll remember to take a memory stick with me to basically bloody do it. Yeah. So yes, definitely I would use choline to sort of methylate the issues and see how you go in that issue. Yeah. I know that Bart has a similar problem. He probably has the same gene. He hasn't looked at the gene. He can't be bothered. So he still takes it, but he spreads it out there on the taurine soda, and he doesn't take choline, whatever he gets from his diet. I find that a lot of people do respond better with choline. Try and take it at the same time to sort of reduce the effects. But there is a bacteria that seems also to help because it suppresses some of these pathogenic ones and seems to reduce the sort of the gassiness in the, it seems people that have got these genetics also tend to have slightly elevated it's probably related to it. I don't know how, the mechanism to this gene. So, So I'm still investing. That's something it's on the back burner. A bit of investigation on some related strains within the gut microbiome that I'm investigating for a whole lot of different reasons. So it's a work in progress. Let's put it that way. There are other priorities at the moment. So, but I will get back to that at some stage. But at the moment, we've got this. But it would be good to suppress the nasties as well. Anyway, dead you are. One of you Carnivore, but my left feet is occasionally swollen. Right feet is fine. What could be the reason? Could be a lot of reasons. You could be bitten by something. You could be exposed to something or a chemical or whatever. It's not just the diet. There's a lot of things that could be going wrong. I would, if I've got something like that, I would get it investigated to find out what is causing it. Because if you're getting some sort of, because this is like similar to swelling is some sort of retention. Now, my father did, you haven't done the Jabba the Hutt thing, because my father did that and ended up getting clots in one of his legs, completely clotting severely. And it happens to some people later. They can actually do this. And I've heard of people having severe clotting a year later, others months later, or others just a week later, like Dad. So there's definitely, if you've done that, that's definitely an issue. It's the reason why we said to people not to do these sort of things. But yeah, that could be. You're welcome, Mango. Yeah, so I would say that is a potential possibility, and if it is related to clotting in the leg due to this or some injury, you can injure yourself. Have you injured yourself recently in a bike accident or something? Because that can also cause some sort of clotting and swelling. So you need to investigate to find out, because this channel does not provide medical advice. And if you've got something that is outside the normal parameters that people get, nobody gets this sort of stuff. This is definitely not related to the diet, because if it was related to the diet, we'd have a lot of people having this problem. So it's definitely an issue that you're getting, but it could, but you need to work out what it is. Go and see a doctor and get yourself tested and examined. And that should have happened yesterday, so to speak. That's the urgency of it, because I don't know how dangerous it could be. Stone Ape theory is one that says that we evolved as humans because we ate mushrooms that had a mental effect as a drug. Okay, is that what it means? Do people actually believe that nonsense? God almighty. Crazy things. No, yes. That's not a hypothesis. That is madman's view. Some madman came up with that. Stoned, most likely, on a joint. Yes. Oh, you're not leaving us. Enjoy your day. It's probably nice and sunny where she is. It actually is not bad here. Maybe I should leave. See you. Gonna go out and enjoy the sun. Well, I can't go. I'm trapped. Brooke, any ideas how best to lose approximately 50 pounds with the type 1 diabetes with Hashimoto's female? I feel like some dairy is necessity for me. Maybe leptin resistance. Iceland. Take natural desiccated thyroid. Okay. When it comes to type 1 diabetes, it's not an area that I'm really specialized in. Obviously, Hashimoto's and stuff like that, you've got to get your vitamin D levels up. You really have to try and manage your energy levels as well, which is really important in that regard. The other thing is, from what I know from doctors that are in the carnivore space or low carb space that do have type 1 diabetes, their key thing that they monitor is to make sure that they've got actually like they'll use a continuous glucose monitor to monitor what happens with every food that they consume, because even certain foods, animal foods, they will react differently. And so it's probably a good investment to get one of those devices to monitor what happens to your blood sugar. So then you can control the amount of, much finer controlled way, the amount of insulin you require. So you don't start playing little silly games of lowering your insulin to very little, allowing glucagon to go too high, which causes that acidosis, ketoacidosis is called, and to try and lose weight, which a lot of type 1s do. I know they do these little tricks. It does have negative effects on the thyroid as well. So it's not a good idea to do that. It's better to get body composition with appropriate foods, but it's probably a good idea to work out what actually, and you have to, when you're doing this glucose monitor thing, no exercise, zero, zilch, no exercise for a couple of days. So if you're doing it for a week, for that half the week, zero exercise whatsoever, Brooke. So you can actually see at a basal level what is actually happening and how you're reacting to different foods. Try all the different carnivore foods in different combinations, the way you generally eat. The first day, the way you generally eat. The subsequent days, vary it a bit, to trying different foods at different times of the day to see what is your blood sugar response. How does your body respond? So then you can actually work out, okay, these animal foods seem to have this effect, these don't, or whatever. Play around with that. So that's one part of the puzzle. In the second half of the week, I want you to do the same thing, repeat the same thing, but add exercise to do a comparison of what effect happens to these actually the insulin dosing, depending on the physical activity and things like that, and through the day. And so, and also and train at different times as well. When you're doing, like, one day, train early in the morning, then midday, then in the mid-afternoon or evening. And the reason for that is also to see, because there is a circadian sort of cycles which affect a number of hormones, and they can have an effect also on the way the body responds. So you're trying to work out exactly how your body functions under those sort of conditions. So this is a key thing. Now, it's critical. Carnivore diet will help you with Hashimoto's because it'll give you the nutrients that your thyroid needs. Also, with taurine and taurine is very important, and so is vitamin D. So you need to get your vitamin D status really high, and you need to be taking at least 12 grams of taurine per day to regulate things much better in the body. And at the same time, to lower a lot of the oxidative stress that you've actually got in the body. We need to eliminate a lot of that as well, because then that will actually normalize. The other thing that taurine will actually re-regulate your gut microbiome and the gut system. It will also tighten the tight junctions. And so will vitamin D. That will mean you'll have, and it'll lower histamine releases and mast cell activation. That will reduce a lot of that inflammation in the gut, and that will also mean that less inflammation in the body, and things will start normalizing. So you've got to get your vitamin D status really well, get on the carny diet, and because, being a female, you need slightly more fat. So because you've got less muscle skeletal structure to maintain. So it's usually the ratio is 0.8 to, but if you look at to 1.2, not the 1-to-1 ratio that I say about men for fat and protein. But if you're looking at, for instance, at the requirements for depends on your physical activity. So if you're women, about anywhere between 1.5 to 1.8, 1.6 to 1.8 usually. It's usually 1.7 that I usually say they should be around. Men should be about at least 2 to 2.2. That's what I do. And, that's a sort of level. If you're doing a lot of physical activity, probably around up to 2.5 at max for women, no more. For men, it can be all the way up to 4 because they have bigger muscle skeletal structure. It's just the way we are designed differently. So those are the sort of things that you need to focus on to getting sufficient nutrition in, and to investigate how you're reacting to different animal foods, and then obviously make sure that you can re-regulate your body and your immune system with vitamin D and taurine. Really critically important that you actually use these things. Once you've actually been doing, once things start settling down, then you can move right back, like I've done, back to 6 grams per day, which is what I do of taurine. Usually 2 at about 11 o'clock in the morning. I did take it a bit earlier today because of the live stream. And then after that, at about early evening, 6 o'clock around there, I usually take about 4, which will improve my melatonin. I've got the blue blocking glasses, which are in the other room, where the TVs or the projector, because I use a projector. I don't even use a TV to reduce the amount of blue light exposure. The lighting system is all, circadian rhythms. This one actually goes through cycles of 3 different settings. The morning ones, which has these sort of like the lights that you would get in the daytime, and then the afternoon is the sort of the sun is going over the horizon and it pretty much that. And then when there's no sun outside, it's gone. The third switch, which is the evening switch, which is the amber orange type. Yes, so that's pretty much it. And consider also, Brooke, if you're struggling and you need somebody to coach you, consider Bart K as someone to go to and for assistance, because I don't do consultancies. I've got a day job, don't have enough time. Used to do some ones for very extreme cases of people, but it's just really hard. Anyway, Jordan, how are you, mate? Do you think back when agriculture started, they understood the health consequences? No, not really. People were ignorant. They just, people don't even remember what people were eating 1 generation ago. I say to people, if you go back to the I show I go and actually Google old videos of people, what they ate in the 1960s. What your parents ate when they were little kids and your grandparents. And they are shocked. People are eating organ meats in Australia, not only in Europe, but in Australia, eating organ meats and stuff like that. 1 generation later, they've actually forgotten what people were eating. So this is the problem. And, most people, if you take a look, they're out there, they won't even think about diet. They think, it's stress, it's my husband, it's my kids, it's this, the females, the men, it's this or that, or your boss or whatever. It's always something else external. It's not you, because you can't be wrong. We have this tendency not to. This is sort of where we delude ourselves that we're always right. We have to have certainty. Otherwise, we're living in chaos in our minds, and our brains are deliberately forcing us to accept narratives. It's the way we're designed. There are some people, like a lot of us, that tend to think outside the box, that are mavericks, that always know that it's all bullshit. And so we tend to basically, because of our maverick behavior and attitude, we tend to be these outliers. The majority of people are in the box. They follow the narratives. And so they will not think that it could be this. Oh, that awful Lord is giving me grains while he's eating big slabs of meat. That's the problem. So, yeah. So people would have actually had the problems, but they would have not understood what is causing the problems because of ignorance and all that. And things would go away or come back, and they would think they are bad and evil demons, and this and that and whatever, causing these diseases rather than the stuff that they're putting down their throats in that regard. Not that there is no evil forces in this world. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying that when it comes to nutrition, I don't think the devil is involved in actually. It's probably the people behind that are doing this, that are possibly being influenced by very evil forces, and you can make a lot of money whispering and all that. But I don't think it's basically, at the end of the day, humans picked up slowly over time. It actually happened very gradually. So about, I'm trying to think now, about approximately 10,000 BC, roundabout, people started foraging a bit more some of these plants, because the hunt, we're in the interglacial period. The animals were thinner. They had less fat on them, less nutrients. Some of the one tribe along the Euphrates that were further inland, what they did was they developed a better, like an arrowhead, to improve their hunting. So they advanced technology in the hunting realm, like the Aborigines with the boomerang, to basically more effectively hit animals at further distance. These things were developed to improve hunting methods. In areas where, along the rivers, there were these wild plants, these people said, let's try these. And so they actually started, just getting the seeds seasonally, or tubers, and cooking them and sucking out the insides, even though they were, they had a lot of fiber, like the Hadza do today, or some seasonal fruit and stuff like that. And so that's what people were to supplement. And over time, they learned that we can take some seeds and we can pop them here and we can grow some stuff. And over time, they learned that they could grow and have more of these things around them that they could actually forage and use. And, the level of their hunting started decreasing, and more of their, and you actually can see it in their bones. When archaeologists look at the N15 and N14 content, the N15 starts tracking down and the N15 starts tracking up. And we can see basically the stones, and they're starting to, mill things, like they're using stones to sort of mill things in the Neolithic period. And we can see the transition. Slowly, these things are being introduced more and more into the diet. And so it's a slow, gradual transition. They don't even notice the changes. They're getting less protein, and they're getting shorter, smaller stature, because they don't have enough nutrition to build bigger musculoskeletal structures. That's one thing that's happening. And on the other hand, they're getting certain deficiencies over time, depending on how much of this stuff they're eating compared to some of the animal foods. And that will vary between population for different areas. So it's a complicated picture, but it happens over a long period of time. I mean, tillage didn't start until 3,300 BC, which is pretty much we're talking about now. The first agriculturals were 5,500, well, less than 5,300 years ago, more or less. So it's a long time ago, but it's in the history of our species, it's very short. So there's very little time. That's when tillage happened in the Middle East, or in that region. Now, even in Greece, for instance, the Minoans actually started their civilization even earlier, even before the Egyptians started. So the Egyptians had, for instance, about 3,200. So in the area of the sort of where agriculture is believed to have started, that sort of covers part of Syria, part of southeast Turkey, and most of Iraq. That sort of area, that region there, is where agriculture started, about, grain agriculture, that is 3,300 BC, and it sort of then moved into the Minor Asia, and then moved into Europe eventually, and certain other parts. So that's the sort of the grain stuff that we're talking about. And Egypt started a bit later. It was about 100 years sort of later than that period. And the Minoans, even though they started earlier, they had a lot of their sort of stuff was related to the sea, trading pretty much things like fruits, commodities of different metals and stuff like that. So it was more metals, fruits, what else did there? Olives, fruits, and metals. I can't remember anything else that they were trading. Oh yeah, that's right. From Milos, they were trading a number of the stones. What was it? I think it was, what was the damn stone? some sort of stone that it's still being there's so much of it. I think it was limestone. I think, can't remember now. It's a while ago. But these different things. So they base their economy slightly more. Grain came later on into the Greek world from Asia Minor. So that was a later thing. So that's what they sort of started it, because most of the societies in Greece were pastoral. So it was basically animals, dairy, stuff like that. I've actually done and some coastal fish and river fish. I've actually done the carnivorous Greeks in the early archaic period. That's made much later on, but a lot of this stuff was actually even happening earlier. So it's not only in the archaic period. So Greece only really, the only region of Greece is in the north, Thessaly, that actually has the ability to grow some grains. And that's where most of the grain production, even to today, happens, where in other parts of Greece, it's very rocky, you're mountainous, you're pretty much pastoral. It's meat and dairy and some seasonal fruit and stuff like that, So that's how the rest of Greece existed. So it depends on the regions and all that. So not all civilization is dependent on grain agriculture. In China, it was rice, and in the Americas, it was potatoes and many other things. So there are other things that actually were utilized in those different societies. So different sort of plants in the subcontinent that were varied. India, that is, varied types of plants that were cultivated in different times. So there is a sort of far more mixed. They had a lot of variety of they seem to have had a greater level of domestication than any other society in the world, in terms of the variety of plants that they domesticated. So, but that's probably the reason, because you had a lot of these little kingdoms and little societies. They may be united now into one entity called India, but back then it was a lot of. I think there are about 4 major ethnic groups now. I think there are four. I can't remember, 4 or 6, or is it 6 in the past or 4 now? It's one or the other. I just can't remember. So so those are the sort of societies that actually created this sort of stuff, But I would say, personally as a person, that most people, even in today's world, can't remember what their grandparents or parents really ate when they were young. They got no connection there, and we don't. And the reason for that is because we don't have a food culture anymore. We've it's corporatized. They've taken over the whole thing. Yes. Anyway, we'll move on. We've covered that. Let's move on to the next question. What nutrition can reverse alopecia naturally? Well, I have it genetically. I've actually shown my genes and all that. Would you love to look at them again? Let me see. 23 and me. Come on. Work. You damn thing. Work. Just bear with me. Why is it? Come on. Okay, we've got it. We've got it working. So, Harry needs to share, present, share. Okay. Let me. It's going to work. But if I get Harry, your genetics make you less likely to have thick hair strands. I've got thin hair. So that's one of them. Who was the other one? Because it actually has for the other parts as well. I could actually get my hair really thick like it is now, and even thicker when I take MSM. That's my solution. So that's that. That's that. I have shown it in the past, but I don't know. They've changed the damn site. Freaking hell. Changed the way the reports. Maybe they've taken those reports out deliberately. Arseholes. Trace overview. Maybe that is it. Let's just see. No promises, because they've actually changed the site on me. I'm a bit confused how to navigate at the moment. It's my Neanderthal I do have. Okay, let's see if it's this part. Ah, it is. So chance of having bald spot is 51%. Chance of having this is, my hair goes grey because of the so I usually get this, so it's about 72% as well. No, that's the other one. Sorry, it's the other one on the back. Early hearing loss. Chance will experience here. Early hair, 70% experience hair loss or thinning before the age of 40 is 70% chance. I've got those genetics for that reason. Not even reading it right, because I've changed the whole bloody thing. Okay. Genetic predisposition to dandruff. Now I can't move the damn thing. Okay, we'll have to move it out a bit. Okay, that'll do. Okay, hair loss, 70%. Now, a number of my relatives have either got severe alopecia or baldness. So my cousin Harry has got a big bald spot all over the top here. So he's, and I don't know whether he's, some wear wigs and stuff like that. So I do have those sort of, as you can see, my hair is quite thick. I don't have the issue. I used to have a lot of, here it actually thinned out quite a lot, but not anymore. You can see it's really thick. I think that's about it. There's no other part. Yeah, I think that was about it. So that covers that. So I'm predisposed, as a number of family members on my father's side, to early hair loss. So it's just, and I did have dandruff in my old days. I don't get dandruff anymore, but I used to have when I was on my kibble. I love those kibbles. Yes. So when I was eating my kibble diet in the past, and bald spot in the back, it's about 50-50. Now, I did have a small bald spot growing in the past, but now it's, there's hair there it's fine. But that's the one that's concerned me, even though I've only got 51%, the actual losing all the hair is about 70-odd%. And the back hair, I do have a small amount. Very little. It's just little bits here and there, but it's nothing like that in the back. And I don't have dimples in my cheeks either, which is true. And I do have that little slightly detached 74% of the earlobe. That's the sort of, what do they call it? The Greek Roman thing. And I have to say, I do get, this is annoying for me. I do get this sort of wet wax type of thing, which is bloody annoying. Just is what it is, 93%. You can't get away from it. So on this sort of stuff, I'm all over the place when it comes to eye color. My is yellowish. Sorry, is greenish. Mum had brown eyes. It wasn't exactly brown. My older sister, her eyes are a bit sort of the hazel type. My younger sister, she's got her eyes are green like mine, but slightly of a slightly different green. Mine tend to be greenish, that sort of thing, in a sense. So, but it's all over the place in the percentages. So the ability, when the percentages are like that, you've got so much variability, the likelihood is much lower. When you've got over 2/3, the likelihood is strong. So, dandruff, it's, is a problem for me. Hair loss is a problem for me. It has been from my 30s. Now I'm 57. And pretty much the only way I've been able to deal with it, personally, to be able to deal with the damn thing, has been pretty much by being on an animal-based diet. So even when I was doing keto, I was getting a lot of thinning out of my hair. I just couldn't fix it. So by actually adding more protein, because what is hair? It's protein. By adding more sulfur, because the keratin bonds, are required. You require sulfur. So if you're not getting sulfur, the other thing is circadian rhythms. I noticed also my hair improved when I started fixing my circadian clocks, because there is a circadian cycle that actually happens with shedding hair and growing hair. And if you're out of circadian sync, you got problems. This is where these little things come in to knock down the blue light to about 70-odd%. So you're back to more natural levels. I've got the eye, I've got the bulb up there, and that's also providing the same sort of level of light that you'll find if I was to walk outside. It's pretty much identical. It's only a few little, in the spectrum, a few little differences, mild, very little, and I don't think that makes much of a difference. So when I'm working from home, I've got that on. I wear these for the screens and in the night I wear the other ones, and I have the other lights, and then eventually before I go to bed, I turn on the other lights, which are red, and they stay on until I go to bed. So And that's the darkness type, that near infrared that you'll get from just being outside in the dark. So that's the sort of way. So I've synced my circadian rhythms, so my hair follicles will grow in relation to the circadian rhythms. I regulate my circadian rhythms by breaking my eating cycle, my fasting, at 11 o'clock when the cortisol is at the lowest. And that's when I'll have, the coffee that I've bloody forgotten, it's gone cold. I blame you, people. I can't take responsibility for myself. That was nice. And so, oops. And so, you need things, nutrition. Cholesterol is important. Biotin is important. So eggs are really important. I have about 6 eggs a day to 8 eggs sometimes, but mainly 6. I will have, so I get as much cholesterol I need. I get enough choline that I need. I get enough, because all these help, with a methylation, because there is a methylation cycle. And I do have MTHFR, which predisposes certain problems in terms of hair and methylation. There is a relationship there as well. So people that do tend to have methylation issues tend to also have worse alopecia than people that don't. So riboflavin, which is high, that corrects the enzyme, that again is in animal foods. Milk and meat are the highest sources. So once you actually eat the animal foods, you're going to get a better regulation. So the animal foods are the important, the foundation. You need the proteins for all because the collagen of your nails and your hair and your skin, well, it needs protein. You're not going to get away with it. You need protein and sufficient amounts. People undereat protein. That's the biggest problem because they have fear of protein. Ridiculous. And so that's important. Plus then to make sure that you're getting enough biotin from the eggs and stuff like that, or organs. And at the same time, you need to fix the circadian system. You've got to fix your sleep cycles, and you've got to fix your lighting. I noticed when I did all that, it really improved. And then another supplement that I really love that really thickens the hair quite a bit is MSM. So M for Mary, S for Sam, M for Mary. MSM. I would take a couple of grams of that. So probably per day, I'd start with about 6 grams. I'd spread it out, 2 grams around the meal time. 2 grams, 2 grams, 2 grams if you're having 2 meals. If you're having 3 meals, if you're having 2 meals a day, 3 and 3, take 6 grams in total. That will really help thicken up the hair. Now, I've stopped using it because I'm using taurine, and I find it thickens up my hair far too much, and it grows too quickly, and it's costing me bloody money going and getting a haircut. You can see it's bloody grown again. I didn't have a haircut too long ago. I have to brush it down to keep it looking smart. So, yes, you may regret growing too much hair. Probably not, but expect your expenses on grooming will go up. So, hope you can afford it. But yes, nutrition is important, and stress is the other one. I forgot. Stress. This is the other thing. Using that 2 grams in the morning and then 4 grams in the evening has allowed me to calm me down and lower my stress levels. So that's the other thing. It lowers cortisol, taurine does, and it regulates it at night and amplifies melatonin. But obviously, if you're exposing yourself to blue light, guess what's happening? Your cortisol's going up because of the blue light from the screens at night, and your melatonin is going in the toilet. So what do you think that's going to do? Your circadian growth of your hair. It's going to affect it negatively. So all these things need to be fixed because you're one of those vulnerable people like me. So you have to do it differently than others. Other assholes out there can get away with, who cares about blue light? but you can't. I can't. Yes. You know who the rest of you are. I'm envious and jealous of you. Anyway. Hope the new subscribers realise that this is just comedy on my part. They don't take offence, Elizabeth. Oh, they don't know me well. And if you don't do what I tell you, I'll call on Bart's little friend, Ted. He owes me some favours. I did him some deals on the side. Bart doesn't know about them. So I'll send Ted around and he'll sort you out. Just, you know you've been warned. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Richard, for putting that up. Appreciate it, mate. Oh, yeah, look. Yeah, I know. Yeah, look, I've actually put up links for some of the others now that are available as well. And in the past, if you go to the previous live stream, I actually have put some on people's comments and all that. Yeah, look, I just say to people now, just get the free form. It can't be the bound stuff. If it doesn't say on the pack free form, so it's unbound, it's just taurine, free form in powder, don't buy it because it's probably from China. There's two production methods. The free form one that they do actually in North America and Europe is not a problem. The problem is with the one coming out of China, which is the bound one, which is the sort of the cheapo stuff. So I don't buy that. The free form. And you don't need to take much. I mean, most people, if they're eating a certain amount of seafood and all that, probably only need about 2 grams, may not need very little if they're very healthy. I do it for biohacking purposes, and I do it also because I had underlying issues to heal. So those are the sort of reasons. I've got underlying things I want to, some people say, well, because they've known me for many years, I go, what are you doing, reversing your age? Well, in a sense, I'm cleaning up a lot of the damage that I did with a lot of seed oils and a lot of things. So I've got a lot of things to fix. So, and for me, being in a professional job like cartography and all that and being paid fine, well, compared to other people, I can afford it. So it doesn't bother me. But, I don't want to be basically like, oh, I can afford it, sort of thing. I understand other people have difficulty. And I say, well, if you can't afford it, there are other options. And those options are organ meats, like hearts. Create a relationship with a butcher and get them to sell you all their hearts. If you can get the hearts and cook those and get the taurine from the hearts, because it's really high and all that, and so are eyes as well. I don't know whether that's a thing that you want to eat. Some people don't have a problem. My dad loves eyes, but other people don't. It's not their cup of tea. But something like the heart of an animal, it's got a lot of taurine, and it also, or more seafood, because that's got a lot of taurine as well. So there are options. Obviously, oysters are very expensive. 100 grams of oysters will give you 2.2 grams of taurine. That's 3.53 ounces. But it may not be the thing that you want as well. But there are other crustaceans which are cheaper that are also good sources of taurine. Much fish, this cheap fish like the white, which is also a good sources of taurine. All seafood have got taurine, even octopus and squid and all that. Why? Because they're in the water. They have to basically deal with the oxidative stress and pressure of the water. It regulates, remember, it's an osmolyte, regulates the blood pressure, regulates fluids. Well, they need more compared to terrestrial animals on the land, so to speak. So these are options that are available. People can buy sardines, which are much cheaper sources of fish. So there's a lot of different things. So you can get taurine more than you can get from the animal food. And you can say, well, since I'm actually having some of these additional sources, I won't bother with supplementation. So I don't need the biohacking. You, Harry, consumed shitloads of seed oils, gave yourself cardiovascular disease in your mid-40s, and you've got more damage to fix. Exactly. And you can afford it. So, those are the reasons. Anyway, it only took 23 minutes to get notified. Morning, Harry. G'day, Nathan. YouTube. Yeah, I know. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm shadow banned again. I get shadow banned now and then occasionally. I'm demonetized recently. They'll allow me to remonetize next month in about a month's time. Well, actually about 6 weeks' time. So, yeah, I'm a bad boy for the stuff that I put out, which they don't like. Anyway, so, yes, I get constantly spanked, and so do you, lovely people, when you come to this, bad person who doesn't follow the narrative. Yes. According to my dear friends at YouTube, I've been a bad boy. I need to be spanked for the next 6 weeks, severely, and not enjoy it. Exactly. Not enjoy it. Feel the pain from my lovely friends, my dear friends at Google, they're lovely people. And BlackRock, salts of the earth, absolutely salts of the earth, keep on buying up the world and, and doing Klaus's work of, yes, we will own everything and you'll own nothing. Yes, lovely people. Yes, couldn't get better people to be associated with. Another question. Let's get serious. Can you please share the actual link research paper on the N15 and Delta 13 and all that? Bart's already put it up. I will basically I've got a copy somewhere on my drive. I'll put a link in, because I have to find it. I can't remember where it is, so I'm not going to waste 5 minutes trying to hunt it down. I will put a link at the end of this and I'll pin it, so you can go and take a look at it. That's just one. There's plenty of others. I'll actually also put the carnivorous one, because that's a different research on the ancient Greeks. So you may want to look at that as well. Anyway, what is your favorite salt? Well, that's a new question that I've never had before. I don't think I've ever actually answered that, or have I? Can't remember. Yes, or just for a sec. How are you, Hard Logic? Hi to you as well. Now, I use a Western Australian salt, which is, I use 2 types of salt. It's a river salt from Western Australia, which is just flakes, and it's a sort of a red salt, a bit like, but it's a flaky. It melts. You can actually put it in your tongue and it just melts. It's really a very different type of salt. And then I use another one, which is from, a desert area in Western Australia. I'm trying to think the region now that it comes from. Salt beds. So, but it's a renewable. They only seasonally harvest it, and it rebuilds every year. So they actually do a limited harvest, and so I usually buy theirs as well. And I use both of those depending on the foods that I'm making and the type of flavors I want. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll do a video at some stage on salt and the sort of varieties and the trace minerals and stuff like that. So do expect a video eventually. But I have gone over the subject in some of my live streams, so. Anyway, what about, yeah. soft tissue damage, such as large 10 centimeter herniated liver discs. Taurine? Don't know. I know that they've done severe damage to rodents, and they've been able to heal them with mega doses of taurine over a very long period of time. Remember, rats live for about 2 years. We're talking about over 3 months. And 3 months is the equivalent for humans, approximately 9.83 years. So it's like a decade for us, the equivalent of a 30-gram dosage. So it's not going to happen immediately. It's going to happen over a very, because you have to have all the cells, cellular turnover. Their metabolic rate is much higher. Their cellular turnover is much quicker. They live less years. They die within about 2+ years. So obviously for them, it's about 3 months. For us, it's about a decade. You know, it even took me nearly a decade, about 7-8 years, to fix a lot of the cardiovascular stuff and all that, and the actual fibrosis in my heart, which is completely eliminated. Plus, red blood perfusion has been normalized, all that sort of stuff, so blood can circulate through the heart and provide the nutrients that the heart needs. So don't expect miracles immediately. What I'm saying is that BPC 157 injectable is possibly going to be something which is probably going to accelerate the effects of healing. And so you do 2 months, 3 months off, 2 months, then nothing for the whole year. We don't want to take risks. And then the next year you do the same thing, and you keep on repeating that, and you keep on taking taurine at least at about 20 grams. Now, if you can't tolerate it because of sulfur, genetics, I don't know, then you take some choline to sort of mitigate that. You know, so these are the sort of strategies. Or come back to me and say, well, this isn't working. Maybe there's another pathway issue. But we're talking about the sort of the taurine sort of, if you're having problems with sulfur, that is. But otherwise, you need to persist with keeping a carnivore diet clean and this sort of stuff happening and all that. Boron is another option, but you need to take boron with a trace mineral, 3 milligrams only every day with a trace mineral. You also need to take choline to spare B12 for the bones. So keep that in mind. You know, that's really important. And, you know, those are the things you need to focus on for the next couple of years. Pretty much at least 7 years. You need to keep it strict, clean, and do these sort of things to try and get results. You're not going to get them magically immediately. It took you decades to cause the problem. It's going to take, because of metabolic rate, cellular turnover, it's going to take, you know, a bit of time to heal. Sorry about the bad news, but that's the reality, how the body works. I can't speed it up. Only God can do that, and I don't have his powers. So all I can tell you is what you need to do to try and actually fix these things. These things will work over time and will heal. But in a rat model, not claiming anything, but you know, but at the same time, it's like even the BPC 157, they've literally broken part of the, you know, part of the body, and they've given it, and it's actually healed within just a very short amount of time, 2 or 3 weeks, which is for us quite some time extra, because it's, you know, that amount. So So that will be equivalent to about 1.6 to 2 years. That's the equivalent of taking the sort of the dosages of the BPC 157. So even that won't immediately, but you will get improvements far above the baseline you are. So that's the way of going about it with those sort of injuries. And I would get it now before, because at the moment you can still buy it for experimental purposes. They have banned it for sports people, but they may ban it for the rest of us, even though it naturally is produced in the body. It's smaller amounts for healing purposes, but we're using it as a biohack because we cause a lot of damage to ourselves by doing inappropriate things for a very long time. Yes. Anyway, Hard Logic. What's Hard Logic asking? Gave Oxbol a try for a week, but no matter if low or high doses, seems only to make things worse. Should I try for long or should I go? Just pop you an email, and if so, how detailed? Quite detailed. Quite detailed. You've got two options: either an email with quite a lot of details, or consider going and consulting with Bart K, because you may need somebody to go through and then ask you to go and do some tests, get test results and look at them and all that. I don't have the time to do that. Just remember, I don't have the time. I've got a day job. I tried doing that for a period of time and it nearly burnt me out because I just did not have the time to do it. And that's why, in 3.5 years from now, I'll be retiring. I'll probably have more time. I may come back into the consultancy sort of thing. But at this stage, I just don't have that capacity. So just keep that in mind, Hard Logic. So drop me a thing. If I can help you, I can help you. If I can't, you may need to consult with Bart K, who can dedicate more time and testing and stuff like that for you. It could be just some minor thing that you haven't thought about. And that's why you need to speak to someone where you can actually discuss your history and they can ask you questions and there's talk back and forward. And they can actually, like your doctor would do, to try and work out symptomatology and things that have happened in your environment. That's why you have to discuss, because it's not only the food that you eat, it's things that happen in your environment. It could be exposure to chemicals, mold, to pesticides, to all sorts of things that can cause some derangements. It, potentially could be the FXR, the FXR gene, and milk thistle may be the option to improve the functioning of that enzymatic pathway in the liver that's not working properly. That could be a problem as well. So you could try milk thistle and see if it works, and it could sort the problem out, but it may not. And that's why I'm saying that you may need to consult with someone to go through a history, discuss a whole lot of things, and then ask you questions in order to work out, because sometimes you may have the information, but you're not giving it. So you need that interactive sort of human to human thing. Emails are just problematic back and forward. It ends up like a long stream of things. And I've had cases like that. It's taken days and days. And if I had consulted with a person, I would have asked certain questions. They would have asked me certain questions or said certain things, and it would have been resolved. And emails can take ages to try and resolve anything. So consider that and recognize that I'm busy as well, and I've only got so much time. I'll quickly read it and say, okay, check, try this. But consultancy, you would sit down with somebody and actually interact and discuss the matter and discuss their life. So we'd discuss all sorts of things, potential traumas, all sorts of things can affect your digestive, the way your body works. And you're trying to re-regulate it, but it could be some other issue, that you're not aware of. And then you go and do a test, There are some cases where, you may have, the vagus nerve, and there could be a condition elsewhere in the body, like in the brain, that is actually affecting the gut microbiome. And then the person goes and scans themselves and finds that they've got a tumor in their head or they've got something like that. So, as I said, we could just give general information, even in a consultant, your general information email, sometimes you may have to go the next step when you've tried a lot of things and do a proper test and actually get your, yeah. So you've been doing milk thistle for months and that hasn't helped. Well, I think you need to consult with somebody like Bart. And you may need to also go and do some tests to find out, whether there's any other issue around your body. So potentially some sort of CT scan to see whether there's anything that shouldn't be there, or an ultrasound. So do consider those things, because look, none of us have come to this diet in a healthy way. We've got underlying issues that we've damaged our bodies in the past, the way we lived and all that. And so now we're trying to resolve these things, but they don't resolve immediately. And there could be a lot of things. I mean, at the same time, that BPC 157, that also helps with the collagen structures of your digestive tract. That also, a lot of people that have actually taken it for other reasons, like injuries, they've actually seen their digestive system improve completely. Their stomach, a lot of their digestive system fix itself. It does happen. I've had, like my next door neighbour, her mum had issues. Her old injury on her shoulder went away. Her digestion improved quite a bit, and she had been eating more kibble for many years and had a lot of digestive issues. That resolved completely as well, even though she's still eating some plants with more animal foods, but that resolved itself. So yeah, it's a lot of that. Just keep that in mind. Anyway, you're welcome. And yes, we can detox in that regard. Your primary detox organs are your liver. Your gallbladder will actually excrete things out. So remember, your liver will actually excrete a lot of things out, and it's really important that it's functioning properly, and your kidneys as well. So these are your, obviously, carbon dioxide and things like that out of your lungs, but the key things that actually get rid of things out of the body are pretty much those organs, and they have to be working properly. I mean, I'll give you an example: manganese. People can get manganese toxicity on a plant-based diet if they've got a gallbladder issue, for the simple reason 90% of it gets excreted from the bile. So if you don't have enough taurine and choline, because they don't in their diet, then they can't excrete heavy metals. Heavy metals is definitely somebody that's been plant-based for many years and has got a lot of derangements and is unable to properly get rid of these things. And the methylation system, they can have an MTHFR like I have, and have an inability to methylate and get rid of things as well, break down estrogens and xenoestrogens and all sorts of things. So a lot of things can cause derangements. So it's important to get the right nutrition to fix and to work on fixing those organs to function properly. And sometimes there's a bit of time lag that is required for that to happen. In that regard, a lot of the animal nutrition, like selenium, that you'll find in animal nutrients in particular, but you do find it in some plants, that is an important chelator of many of these heavy metals, like cadmium, like basically mercury or things of that sort, can actually be removed as well. They can be chelated by a thing called selenide. It's a modified version of selenium, sort of a selenium peptide thing. And that can actually chelate, grab, and take these things out. And it takes them out of the bile in many cases. That means your bile needs to be working properly in that regard. And if that's not working properly, yeah. And then there's also calcium D-glutarate, which is another, so calcium, and then D-glutarate, GLUCARATE, I think. And that also will prevent, it also helps in breaking down xenoestrogens and also prevents sort of reabsorption. And there are some bacteria in the colon that have the ability of breaking down the the bile, sort of when bile salts are actually envelop these things and are taking them out. This can actually be broken down, part of this mechanism to get rid of heavy metals and toxins. And some of these bacteria can do this sort of supplement, also helps improve the detoxification pathways in the liver, but also in the gut. It actually suppresses these and protects and prevents these bacteria from doing this and then causing the reabsorption. And how many of these bacteria and which strains you have is just pot luck. Some people are unlucky, they have them, other people don't, and they don't require this supplement. So it depends. It's just one of those things. If people are basically getting reabsorption and we're doing blood tests and they've still got these things circulating, and we've done an ultrasound on their liver, their liver over here, get it right, Harry, and their liver gallbladder works properly, then it could be the bacteria. Then they'd have to do a gut microbiome. You can see how this can become complicated to work out exactly what the hell and how and all that, because then you have to do a test, like a fecal sample, to find out, oh, we've got these strains. Okay, these strains cause a problem. We need that supplement to prevent the reabsorption. And so that's a problem. And then, there's a whole protocol of how to eliminate these. Some people think that, certain types of bacterial enemas, sticking up things up your ass, just to use the plain English vernacular, for those who enjoy that. Anyway, it's probably okay, but for those who don't, it's probably not a comfortable thing. So that's sort of another thing that some people use to basically change the gut the colon's, that microbiome composition, to reduce this capacity. So even if you get exposed in future and you're doing a proper diet, you won't have enough of the stuff to cause reabsorption. So these sort of things can be complicated, as you can see. It's not a straightforward thing. And we don't want to have to be taking a number of these supplements forever, in a sense. So we want to basically get things to work properly. So depending on, and so sometimes we need a test. And that's why I say, when somebody does a consultancy, they may ask you to go and test for these things. They may say, well, go to a naturopathic doctor and ask for these tests, and then come back to me, and I will then, get their advice, but then come back to me and I will look in it and provide you with something outside the box that they're not aware of, because many of them are not. They're not up to date on this sort of stuff. Some are, it depends. A lot of the low carb doctors are pretty cluey about this. So if you find a naturopath who is a low carb doctor, a lot of them know a lot about these pathways. And so you don't need to consult, just go to one of them. They do the testing and they provide you with the appropriate, supplemental or protocol to deal with a problem. Usually they have standard protocols in some regards. So that's how you get around it. Okay, how are you as well, Lukey? Yeah, I know I'm running late. God, I'm way behind, as normal. Nothing changes. And as I said to people, get your questions in early, because yes, we'll sort. Yes. Do I see dusters? Yes. I can make arrangements. Yes. I just need to basically talk to the little Tassie devil and sort of work out some sort of arrangement. Yes. It will be nasty. Yes. He gets really upset when people don't turn up early. Yeah, God. Even with me. Vicious little bastard. Any signs of symptoms of low taurine? Not really. No, not really. It depends on people's genetics. Some people have like methylation issues. Some people have anxiety, heart palpitations, because it does become, too much stress, not being able to manage stress. So it can be a lot of varied symptoms. They can vary, in many regards. But I can tell you one thing: once you get the sort of stuff that actually is taxing the sulfurs, and your body's actually regulating much better, things calm down. You're actually, a more pleasant person to be around. Unlike me. Thanks. You're welcome. Yeah. But that was my sort of history as well. I used to get a bit of these sort of, feet in particular, me as well. But that was in my old kibble days. Yep, the kibble guzzling days. I like that. Dot. Ask yourself, what do you really know? Dot. Fuck all. It's all an act. God. Just magically comes into my head. Demonic inspired definitely leads people to be hooked on and promote slave foods. Yes, very much so. Very, very much so. Plenty of evil out there. And it's only those who are controlled by it that will tell you there isn't any. Lemmy, how are you? H, can you suggest less damaging diet for Orthodox fasting day? What will be the consequence of switching Wednesday and Friday, Lent, etc.? Look, I tend to basically, when I'm fasting, I eat nothing. I just fast completely, zero anything. So no plants whatsoever. Traditionally in Orthodox, my mother used to make this sort of, it was these wild plants, green plants these were, from the old country, Greece. And she would cook them up, hortes they call them. She would cook them up. You probably had horta. I suspect your mum would have made you some as well. Or didn't she know how to cook that sort of stuff? So mum would cook that up, and it would be pretty much, if olive oil was allowed, there'd be some olive oil. Because in some of the days it's not allowed. In those days, it's just some lemon juice. And I hated eating them hot. I couldn't eat them. The taste was ugh. So mum would have to let them cool down. She'd prepare mine earlier, allow it to cool down in a bowl, and then she'd put it in the fridge to sort of lower the temperature even further. And stuff coming cold out of the fridge, chilled slightly, that I could eat. I loved it. I could just the whole lot, and I could eat more if there was more. So it changed the entire taste. But that's what I used in the old days. Now I just, I don't know the recipe. Don't know how to cook that. Dad still cooks a bit. He does for when he fasts, in that regard, for an Orthodox fast. Occasionally now he just doesn't eat at all. He'll fast like every Monday and just doesn't eat anything. Just not eating, So, and I do the same thing. So, and I find it easy, just don't eat for the couple of days. And I don't find it a problem for me personally in that regard. That's how I do it to avoid. I know a lot of the modern Orthodox Christians, they tend to have far more plants and stuff like that. And they have these like Vagoon fasting mimicking diets like, Walter, that other guy, Londo guy, promotes, whatever. I'm not, at the end of the day, it's depriving yourself of animal foods and stuff like that, which is really the thing. That's what a fast is. It's sort of a spiritual. You're depriving your body, and you're trying to spiritually connect, make that connection. It's sort of like you could say a sacrifice, because animal foods are very important, even in the Old Testament, very important. So, they are the pinnacle. Depriving yourself of those is to basically like showing that a commitment, in a sense, that I will deprive myself of those wonderful foods that God has given us. And, it's a spiritual, to deprive the body, the flesh, of those great foods. So that's how. So do you need to eat plants? No. When you're doing that sort of fast, that's what I do anyway. That's my approach. And the modern Orthodox people, they have these grain dishes and stuff like that, which is not what is traditional. If you go to Mount Athos, up in the monasteries and all that, they still basically do the old grass thing that my mum used to do. It's low carbohydrate. It's that what they still do to this day, the monks. And if you're an older monk, like with children or frail elderly people, they allow them to eat some fish, even on some of those days that it's not permitted. So they do. There are many old monks that will still have some of the horta together with some seafood for that reason. It's because they're frail, they're old. Pregnant women and children are not permitted in the Orthodox religion to fast. And if any priest recommends something like that, they're completely ignorant, likely new to the religion, and have no idea what they're saying, and they're not following canonic law, which is absolute in the church. And that means they are veering off and putting at risk their parishioners. So if anybody says that, they need to be spanked and be told to follow canonic law. Anyway, that's my little sermon on Orthodox dogma. Anyway, let's move on. Harry, what would be good general advice for a female in her 20s to maintain youthful-looking skin? A lot of women fear the sun because they worry about skin aging and all that. If you're eating animal foods, you're going to get the nutrients that look after your skin. I don't put any skin products on mine. I'm 57. Okay? So, do I use any skin products? Zilch. And most of those skin products are not really good for you. They've got, look, ladies, have you looked at the chemicals on those damn things? They're really nasty for your skin. They're not healthy. You can't mitigate a poor diet with slapping a whole lot of crap on your face, because that's what it is. It's unnatural. I don't actually like it, so at all. Even my current partner, I get, sometimes she puts some on and I get a bit narky with her. Because one, I can't kiss her because she's got a whole lot of shit on her face, which I find annoying. I don't want that in my mouth. So, yeah. So pretty much she's taken a lot of that away. She doesn't need it. She's a beautiful woman, annoys me. Anyway, that's my family. I better get away from that before I get into trouble. But people do it for a whole lot of reasons. Not, they tell you, "Oh, I'm trying to keep my skin." Yeah, it's bullshit. You're trying to basically just show that I'm so womany to other men or to whatever. So there's a whole lot of other psychological reasons why they're doing it. They know it, and we know it. People can lie to themselves. Fine. But what I usually say is, there's a couple of things you can do. You need good hydration. If you're getting the nicotinamide B3, so that's the reduced, the one that goes through the salvage pathway. of NAD. So the nicotinamide, so it has to be nicotinamide, and you can find it. That's cheap. So you find that, and that is, you take a couple of a small dose of that, and that provides good hydration for the skin, which is really important. So that's one factor. The other thing is to make sure that you're getting enough of the fat soluble vitamins, because they regulate. Remember the matrix metalloproteinases. When your skin is hit by UV, your liver and some of the peripheral, you'll get a generation of matrix metalloproteinases, those collagen degrading enzymes that turn over, and you'll get it usually is MMP9 and MMP2 that get expressed in the skin, and the key cofactor is retinol. Secondary cofactor is vitamin D. So they will actually regulate and prevent it. Now, if they are unregulated, they can cause a lot of skin issues. And people that have got psoriasis and all that, they've got completely unregulated, and supplemental vitamin A is not the same. It doesn't work the same. It actually makes things worse. Do not use retinol as a vitamin supplement. It's really, really bad. And that's the same thing that they put in the cosmetics and all that. Not a good thing. Get it from food, animal foods, like, your meats, like the fats of your meats. Eggs are fantastic. Eggs are got really good profile. All women should be, especially which need more hormonal support than us males, they should be eating more eggs than I do. They should be sucking down those eggs. What are you doing, women? So lather some egg on you. So that's the sort of stuff you want in your diet. You want these fat soluble vitamins. So your minoquinone 4, your vitamin D. So good, having a good level. We're not talking about excessive here. We're talking about the, in the normal range, the higher end of the normal range. We're talking about having all these nutrients and making sure your body's operating properly, not causing a lot of oxidative stress. If you've got very little oxidative stress in your body, the small amount that will be generated from the sun can be dealt with through catalase, superoxide dismutase, and glutathione being generated in the body. That usually settles a lot of that. So, no, I don't think so. I don't think she is watching, luckily, Troy. Then I would be in trouble. Anyway, so getting back, So you don't really need. I know it's a fashionable thing for these young ladies in particular. They've grown up in this mentality that I need to basically put something on my skin. My girlfriend's doing the same thing. She's slapping on all this stuff. I'm not like the other. I don't want to be different from the other girls. It's all this sort of nonsense. As I said, women are too emotional when it comes to those things, and they get triggered very easily by other women. You know who you are, young women. Yeah, so really good nutrition is important, and so is, because it's the nutrients that will actually provide that healing a bit. And if you take a look at a lot of the cosmetics, what have they got? Retinol in them. They got nicotinamide, nice, and things like that in the product. Why? It's not surprising, So unless you've got certain skin issues and stuff like that, you may need to consider things like alpha lipoic acid, things like that, to be able to help and all that. But if you're getting animal nutrition, you should get more than enough of, the amino acids that you require. Because a number of the amino acids also have anti-inflammatory effects as well. So if you're eating enough animal foods, you should be getting enough of the stuff that's required to maintain the collagen structures in your body. If you're not eating enough protein, under eating protein, which a lot of women unfortunately do because of the propaganda out there, they will suffer more. Oh, is he? Oh, he's gone to bed. Oh well. He'll listen to this tomorrow while he's at work, because he's got work tomorrow. So yeah, understandable. Thanks, Nathan. Just noticed. For skin, lots of buzz around hyaluronic acid helps retain water, I think. Look, hyaluronic acid, yes, is useful, but there's enough hyaluronic acid in animal foods, and also we're eating enough of the precursors to produce within our body endogenously in that regard. So, you know, I still haven't seen like research showing me like a substantial improvement. It seems like there's, when it comes to hyaluronic acid, it seems to you get more benefits from things like bone, cartilage, and stuff like that, more than skin. So, is it worth the cost? Young people at that age, really, I mean, really, they tend to heal much faster and all that. It's really at the end of the day, if you want to maintain good mitochondria, because the more your energy drops over time and you get more senescent cells and less cells that are actually able to provide the sort of energy you require to heal, that's going to do more damage in the long run. It's doing more damage and having less energy to repair it. And so eating high deuterium foods that are going to damage your mitochondria and produce less energy is going to be your long-term problem for maintaining good skin health, good organ health, good brain health, good heart health, good everything health. Because we produce over 24 hours, if you're young and healthy, you produce your weight in ATP in the mitochondria. But if you damage your oxidative phosphorylation, your ability to generate, you lower your redox potential, you reduce the ability to generate energy in the form of ATP, what happens is, whether the electron chain, there's some level of oxidation that's actually happened, or whether the cardiolipin right after complex 4 has been damaged, the PUFA, and you can't build up a gradient of protons inside those folds within the inner mitochondrial membrane, as it's called. You can't. And so you can't create that sort of additional pressure for the ATPase, the nanomotors, the complex 5s, to rotate fast enough to generate enough ATP. So if you're young, your nanomotors, and you're very healthy, they'll be rotating at and sucking in these, pulling through these protons and rotating at 9,000 RPM and generating quite a lot, all the ATP you need to maintain your body and heal your body. That's why young people heal very fast, because they've got more energy. You can throw all sorts of supplements, but if you don't have the energy to fix things, they're not going to happen miraculously. So that's the thing that we seem to forget. Sometimes, people say, "Oh, I'll take this and this supplement." I go, "Well, what's your mitochondrial state at? If it's not good, not going to make a lot of difference." You can't force a system to work faster just because you're providing more of the nutrients for those systems to work. If the systems are damaged and they don't work, they're not going to use the stuff. It's just going to be expensive supplement urine in terms of supplementation or feces. So, yeah, we need to keep a lot of this in mind. Bruce Irving, how are you, mate? Phoenix compilation, always a pleasure. Harry, do you have a prayer schedule? Read Bible regularly? What routines do you recommend for new Christians? This isn't a Christian show, but I will answer your question. But it isn't a Christian show. I do recommend people go to Jay Dyer or Patrick. What is it called? Something of the Eternal Logos. His channel. I do put up some of their videos and stuff like that in the community page all the time, and they are more versed in providing people this sort of information, not me. I'm not, in that regard. And so I don't actually follow myself properly a lot of the things. I'm very irregular in my Bible reading or stuff like that. So I'm not consistent in any way. You could say I'm a bad Christian, a bad Orthodox Christian. So, I go now and then to church. I don't go often. So I'm not perfect in that regard. I'm not claiming to be a perfect Orthodox Christian, and I'd never do that. But, I got confirmation. Oh, thank you. Just need to reply to this for the barbecue tonight. So, or this afternoon, not tonight. My brother's partner, she just sent me a message through WhatsApp, so I just need to reply. Give me a sec. Okay, done. And yeah, so I would say if you're new, probably, I was born an Orthodox Christian. So my parents baptized me from a young age, being from Greek heritage. And so I grew up in it. And maybe I take it for granted, maybe, I'm sort of more, I did go through an atheist phase. I come back to the church and all that. And I'm connected to the church, don't get me wrong. And I do, occasionally read the Bible, but not very often. I have to be honest. I don't, in that regard. Maybe I should do more of it. But I would say go and speak to your priest, not me, and get advice from your priest, because that's the purpose of the priest, to basically discuss these things with you, schedules and stuff like that. Because the priest also may say, look, I understand you've got a lot of things in your family. Maybe you should focus on your family and less on this. God will understand. And so that's what I'm saying. It's best to go to your priest who knows you and discuss with them when it comes to these sort of questions, because it's not going to be the same for everyone. And that's why I can't give a blanket. That's why I always say to people when they come to me and say, well, Harry, and all that, if I've got issues and I need to speak to somebody to get off my chest, I'll go and see my priest. And that's what you should do. We were lucky in the past because we were friends. When I was a young kid, the priest's son was one of my best friends, and the priest was a family friend. He used to come very often. He was an interesting character, so in a lot of his beliefs, he was more left-wing in his politics and all that as a priest. Greece is, because in Greece, politics and religion do not connect. I know in America you're conservative and all that. In Greece, you can have priests that are communists or right-wingers. It's all the gamut, because that which is Caesar's, that which is God's is God's. And these are basically conservative left-wing people or conservative right-wing people or conservative centrists. They are from all, because 95% of the population is Orthodox Christian. So they will be of all these different political persuasions. I know in America it's very different, in other countries and all that, and especially the English-speaking world, it's very much, you're either conservative and religious, That's not a thing in Greece, or in the Greek world, where, you can be different politics and still be a person of faith. And that's probably a good thing, because it means you don't get this extreme left woke craziness that emerges in the society, like in America, because these people are religious people. They go to church and all that. They just vote for, those left-wing people, the cities of people, for example. I've got relatives that vote for them, and they are devout Orthodox. They go every single Sunday to church, even more than me. So yeah, it's completely different. It's not the same as other parts of the world, and I think it's the same in places like many Eastern European countries. People can be varied politics and still go to church in large numbers. It's a very different, I think it's the consequences of Protestantism in the West that's actually created this sort of divide between, in the politics area and a lot of other areas. It's very unhealthy for society, and it's created these massive fractures in society. It's not something you can fix overnight, all that. And I recognize that and all that. It's very different. And for me, because I grew up in Tasmania, I was born here, and I lived in Greece as well. And I can see both societies. And I can understand they come from a different historical development. And so that's why they have a very different history, different culture, things like that. And that's why things are the way they are. But I never give people advice when it comes to religious matters. I always direct them back to their priest. They need to speak to their priest. I'm not their priest. I'm not their spiritual advisor. It's not my role, you know. Even Jay Dyer and people like Patrick David, he won't actually give you. He'll tell you to go back to your priest, and he's right. He's there just to do the. You could say discuss the religious issues and do the apologetics and stuff like that, as it's called, or the arguments and whatever else. That's his role. He runs a YouTube. He's probably asked his local priest, the authority, to basically do that. So he wouldn't just have set up, and this is why I can't give advice to Christians, because I would have to go back to my priest and ask him for authority. And I would have to get him to grant me authority to be able to discuss religious issues on my channel. You know what I mean? I can touch and talk about the politics of the church or things like that, or whatever issue, or things that have come up. But to talk about dogma, religious scripture, and in that regard, talking in an academic way about religion, that's fine, because I'm just explaining the history of something or whatever. But actually going that next step and actually talking about dogma, I need to get authority from my local priest. Now, Jay and Patrick David, they've actually gone and done that, and they have a number of the local priests in their diocese that do, and beyond their diocese, that do participate on their channel and stuff like that to discuss certain types of issues, theological issues. It's not my role, I don't have authority. So that's why I can't give you, I can just tell you generally that, I'm not perfect. Sometimes I'm a bit more perfect than other times, but I'm not perfect. But, I still do, with the three fingers for the Trinity, and the sort of slot on an angle, which is the sort of X slot, which is the Christos in Greek, which means Christ. It's the first letter. So that's why you do that sort of things. Those are just the, what are they called? The traditions of the church, the ritual traditions, the way you do things. But yeah, you need to go and see your priest and discuss with them, with the priest, or with, it's primarily the priest. No, it's not them. It's just the priest. No, not anyone else in, because there is sort of the administrative people and all that sort of stuff. And, I think, I'm not sure whether you can actually, like, deacons and people like that, I'm not sure whether you can actually ask them as well. Maybe. We don't, it's a small church here, so we don't have we just have a priest. So yeah, but the safest thing is just to ask your priest, and yeah, that is the safest, and they will guide you. What would you recommend for someone that has symptoms of vitamin A toxicity from past Accutane? Nasty stuff. What did you ever use that? Anyway, I know a lot of people, they take a whole lot of sugar to produce, a lot of the acne. And what's the acne? That's a whole lot of MMPs, matrix metalloproteinases. The receptor site on the matrix metalloproteinase, this Accutane doesn't actually bind properly, and can actually cause derangements, can sometimes make it worse. Some people it helps a bit, but it's not functioning properly, the actual enzyme. And probably because it's impeding its functioning, it probably allows the healing to happen, because it's not overreacting. It's probably working in that way with some people. And in other people, it actually then makes it worse. It overreacts. It deranges it even further. So it's really bad stuff. will the body excrete the synthetic over time? Yes. If you've got good gallbladders, look, if you are worried that your gallbladder isn't working properly, so one is liver storage capacity. So if, you need to make sure your liver's working properly so you can store things properly. You can store a lot of retinol as long as your liver's fine. If it's not fine, then you can't store as well. That's where another problem can lie with some people when they've got, and usually they know because there are certain enzymes, liver enzymes, that go up. But on the other hand, there is also the excreting ability. Most of the excess retinol will get excreted via the bile. Your gallbladder will get rid of potentially up to 90-odd%. So if you're not eliminating retinol excess or getting rid of the synthetic stuff out of your body, it means you've got a gallbladder issue. You need to do an ultrasound to work out whether it's sludge, stones, what state it is, and then pretty much get onto the milk thistle, the taurine and the choline to try and fix that. And just do it, because you may not know, just at least get a few grams of all these things. You may need more slightly, depending on your genetics. Without a genetic test, you don't know. So, but ultimately, then you can go back after 6 months, do a new scan to see has it improved, and you may have to up the dosage slightly to try and get that sort of stuff out. So it depends on the sort of stuff. Then there's the sort of stuff, as I said earlier, about the calcium D glucarate. So glue, as in GLU, and then K, and then rate. That's how I remember it. I'm dyslexic. I can't pronounce certain things very well. So glucarate. So basically, that could be needed if you've, because of depending on your genetics. Anyway, you're an animal, you brutal thing. You've turned up. How are you, mate? We love him. He's always got the perfect insults. Oh, yes. My dear friends, my lovely, enchanted friends from the demonic realm of Google. I know. You need to be spanked, my dear. That's why. It's been a long time. Ownership is such a chore. Okay. Let us lighten your load. God. You've got con artist skills there. I'll give you that. Depending on what sort of chores. Yeah, there could be a problem with some of them. I wonder what symbolism they liked so much. Oh, that's just the black rock and stuff like that. Yes. They are wonderful people, Lukey. Yes, wonderful people. Yes, they want to reset us all, and then insert chips into us. Well, just recently, our dear friend, our lovely humanitarian Bill. Oh, he's such a lovely person, Mr. Microsoft. Now he's got a patent on humans themselves. They gave him a patent only in America, where it's corrupt to the hilt, where they can give human patents. I didn't actually give them the right to give him a patent on my body. Yes, so he can insert sensors into you at some point in the future. Yes, and then monitor the kibble that you're actually getting. Orban. Yes, yes. From WA Salt. Yes, exactly. Lovely place in the world. Yes, you don't have the problems of pollutants. Very pristine in those sort of areas of Western Australia. Yes, you're welcome. Oops. It's a cool. Harry, do you believe in biopsies for checking unknown tumors? Definitely not. Nope, nope, nope. Dad, with his kidney cancer, the initial doctor said, "Oh, maybe we should do a biopsy," and I said, "No way in hell. I don't want it spreading beyond that." And then the oncologist that we had, luckily, I actually asked for somebody that had a bit of experience, and we ended up with this Russian oncologist, Russian Australian, who'd come out from Russia. Nice fellow, very nice fellow. He said, "Look, I'm going to treat you, George," he said to my father, "as if you're my grandfather." And I said, "You're more likely to die from kidney cancer than die from it." He said, "We'll leave it and we'll just monitor it." Since then, doing the stuff that I told him to do, it's actually halved in size, and his kidneys have grown as well, less, problematic. So left it alone. It's got better with getting rid of a lot of the fructose and, and stuff that was higher in deuterium, all the sort of stuff, and getting better nutrition in him. That's the best way to go about it without playing around. No is and a big no, very risky, these sort of things. Best to basically use methods like ultrasound and other things to basically determine that you've got something, and then go to my protocols that I've got that are covered in the cancer playlist that explains how cancer emerges, what it is, why it exists, and how it comes about, and what to do about it, based on research that I've looked in and the way I've extrapolated that research and given you the information. This is not medical advice, guys, but it's an extrapolation from a lot of research that shows that these methods have efficaciousness. That means they are useful, and all that. I'm not claiming cure. What I'm claiming is that these have shown in research to basically improve or ameliorate the condition. What you take from that is your business. And the deuterium side explains the damaging of the mitochondria and how the signaling takes place between the mitochondria and the nucleus, and those signaling interactions, upregulate oncogenes and all that, the way they happen. Yes, that happens. Both are valid. Some people are sort of focused on the genetic side. The genetic side is a consequence of signaling from mitochondria, and it has to do with energy deprivation. Nothing to do with, it just happened. Even when a virus causes cancer, it's because it's gone into the endoplasmic reticulum, stuffed up a lot of the machinery there, forced the Krebs cycle into reverse to suck in more deuterium and damage the mitochondria even further, to create more, to produce more lactate to feed itself. That's what viruses do. And that's why they can sometimes, in people that have already got some pre-existing damage, that they can force the damage even further to the level where the mitochondria get too damaged, their energy producing mechanisms, and then they signal to the nucleus that we need to run an old fermentation program to generate lactate to basically provide energy to the cell, but also to the little virus. Anyway, so we need to understand how these things happen by having this holistic understanding. Most people don't. And this sort of stuff is just basically doctors are trying to get jing at your own expense and the risk to basically allow something to spread to other tissue in the body. Not an advisable thing. I can't give you advice. If you want to go and listen to that advice, that's your issue. If I was personally in the same position, I would not take that advice. That's my personal opinion, not medical advice. But do go and check my playlist on cancer, and you'll get a lot of insights that you probably don't have. And I see that you're also new to my channel, so you probably aren't aware of the information. And then come back and ask me questions for things that you haven't not understood. I try to make it as simple as possible. I don't use I've jettisoned a lot of the scientific terminology. Some of my earlier videos I used a bit more. Nowadays I try to use very minimal or very little and just use plain English to explain things as much as possible, because at the end of the day, if you guys don't understand it, what's the point? Yes, good to have you here, Troy. You're in that state. Bloody hell. God. Isn't it a dictatorship yet? Your illustrious governor, hasn't he basically turned it into a dictatorship? Do you have to goose step and salute to the great leader? And what's your kibble? Yes, okay. What's your kibble ration for the week from the great leader? Oh, yeah, that's the stuff we were talking about earlier. Yep. Yes. Look, Bart K will actually do sometimes, if people are financially really in a difficult spot, he sometimes, may do a discount price or very low, something minimal, but approach him and just tell him, look, I can't afford it, but I need help. He's out there to help, in many cases he does it. But obviously he has to eat as well. Just keep that in mind, Yes. That fellow, yes, your Lord Gavin. Yes, I hope you've got a little worship doll of him at home, and you prostrate yourself every single day doing this and all that, and doing the sort of things, and doing the yoga thing for him as well. I hope you're doing all this, Roy. Troy, Roy. Roy's at night. He's the other character that I play. So I hope you're basically doing this. I'd be very disappointed in you if you're not. Anyway, so okay. Taurine and Leucine, both recommended. Yep. What's your thought on L-glutamine supplementation? Nah, I wouldn't bother. For possible with MPS, digestive health, muscle recovery, for those extra, getting enough protein, you should be fine. Your body will get enough. I usually say to people, if you're going to eat meats, try and get meats with connective tissue. So that's actually better. It may mean cooking it a bit more. It's actually cheaper as well. A lot of my I get mid fourth section, as they called, of lamb, and it has this sort of, sometimes I get chops as well, but I always get a bit of bone and a bit of connective tissue from those sort of things. I never actually just get boneless stuff, unless I'm having the occasional steak, but even tonight, this afternoon, I mean, the tomahawks are going to have bone on them and connective tissue and all that, and I'm going to scrape that off and consume it. So you will get a lot of this sort of stuff. And at the end of the day, remember, all this gets broken down in the stomach into simple amino acids. You don't absorb proteins. You take these simple amino acids, and even the muscle meat has these amino acids, and the body, from the essential amino acids, can produce any amount that is required. So really, it's not. If people are under eating protein, then these supplements are useful. But if you're eating sufficient protein, you're getting 2 grams per kilo body weight. Yeah, you're fine, which is a gram per pound. You're going to be fine. You're not going to have any problems. Anyway, Leo, how are you, mate? I think you're on the previous stream. Do you sleep? Probably as bad as me tonight. This evening, anyway. Greg, hi Harry. Any advice for someone with alpha gal allergy trying to do carnivore but can't handle the red meat? I'm going to make a video on it. I'm going to cover this in a video. There are foods that you can actually consume, like very high foods that are really good in that regard. So squid, octopus, fish, all these sort of very healthy crustaceans and stuff like that. Obviously, there are different bird types, dinosaurs, basically ex-dinosaurs. So you don't have to only eat chicken. You can eat very multiple different types of birds out there. There's emus. There's all sorts of, ducks and whatever else. There's a lot of different variety out there that you can eat in that regard. Now, I am investigating some pathways. I don't want to give away too much because I'm going to make a video on this, and I'm going to discuss some of these pathways and why these allergies are much higher today than what they were in the past. But I don't want to give away too much because I don't want my competition beating me. And because I have a job, I don't have time to basically do these videos, and it takes time. And so it will be hopefully later this month or early next month, and it will cover this subject matter, and it will go into some methodologies and some things related to it in terms of the desensitizing approaches. But I don't want to go into it yet because that would be giving away too much research. Sorry, but you'll have to be patient with me. Fair enough. You were right. He did get a bed. He bailed out on me. Usually comes on. He must be tired. With drinking water, do you use or recommend any type of countertop pitched or portable systems, spring mineral distillation or whatever? Nah, I don't consume a lot of water, as you guys know. I just use primarily Evian water, mineral water, alpine water, which has got quite a lot of minerals for my coffee. That's about it. And nowadays, what I usually do is I used to boil the water and, and all that. Now I don't even I use very little, just a very tiny amount of water now, just a tiny amount, so I can actually mix and so that's quickly, I just put it in the microwave, heat it up, then I'll put my coffee, stir it, then the rest will be milk. I'll put it in for a minute and that will warm it up. Done. So that's my coffee, the way I do it now. So it's more milky and stuff like that, and I enjoy it far better. And milk is much lower in deuterium. So that's how I do it. And in nature, most tribal people just eat food. They rarely consume water, occasionally here or there, but very little. You don't see tribal people running around with water. You end up upregulating your antidiuretic hormones, and the taurine regulates the fluids and the ions in the body. So the problem is it's the modern lifestyle. But if you're going to consume anything like Evian water is what I use, which has lower deuterium compared to tap water and doesn't have all the crap and shit. It actually has a very nice taste to it, and it's very mineral dense. Just remember to clean your cup. I don't really. I'm a bit, because it will mineralize. There's a lot of minerals in it, and even if you put it Evian water in a pot and heat it up and then empty all the water out into a cup or whatever, you'll see all these it'll be like a white thing, a powdery. It's all the minerals. It's really packed. That's what alpine water, real alpine water, that's why it's more expensive. And that's why I use very little, because milk's cheaper than the damn thing. It's gone up again in price, the water. So I've actually had to go this way of actually using less water and using more milk. But I'm fine. I like milk, so it doesn't bother me in that regard. But that's the way I've actually saved. I'm not, as I said, guys, I'm not really into, I'm more like these tribal people that don't, and you can see my skin isn't problematic, or I get good hydration, all that. If you upregulate your antidiuretic hormones, over time your body adjusts and you need less. Just the way it is. and you end up getting more from your fat stores. You end up getting more. That woman won't leave me alone. More comments. Now she's winding me up. With pleasant talk. I'll send her a love heart. What can one say? Let's move on before I get into trouble with my brother. Can you link to your source brand for glasses? Oh, that's no, I don't get any. I don't get anything. I can't provide you a discount because I don't get anything from them. I've just purchased like anyone else. I've just checked the different companies, and they tend to have the best brand with third-party checking, and also they provide really good the frequencies that go through their eyepieces, so I can then pick and say, okay, I'll get these lights, I'll get this and all that. So you just have to go on my research, in a sense, into this company. So they're a bit more pricey than others, but let me put my coffee in here so I can damn type. I probably should approach them at some and ask them to get a discount code and stuff like that. I just haven't. It's a thing that, for one reason or another, I haven't wanted to commercialize this channel. You're welcome, Troy. For me, it's more important, even though they've demonetized me recently because of the controversial stuff, it wasn't, people sometimes would give me a bit, here or there for have a coffee, Harry. It was usually Dom and Richard and people like that have known me for some time and followed me for some time, and that was fine. The rest I'd get some money from just the advertising, and that's fine. But it's not the purpose of the channel. I don't do it for that reason. I do it primarily because I'm interested in getting really good information out for people, because I've suffered with my own health problems. And when I was looking to try and get information, people were just giving me crap and just regurgitating the same bullshit over and over again, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And when I did these deep dives, I realized I had to fix myself because nobody else was going to fix me. And now I know that, I'm a pretty smart person with a high IQ. Not everybody's got the capacity to do this, what I can do. And so I'm saying to myself, well, we're only cruising through this world, and and then eventually we're going to meet our maker. So, maybe he kept me alive to do some good work. Maybe, who knows? Maybe I'm deluding myself. Get your pick. But I've decided to basically dedicate part of my time as a human to others and help them out and provide them with some insights to be able to help with their health journey. That's the only reason. So I've tried to avoid going down the commercial pathway for that reason. Yeah. Call me an idiot. Call me a fool. That's fine. I'll take that connotation. As I said, that's not the purpose of the channel. Never has been from the beginning. It's basically to get the messages out. I can see the world going hell in a handbasket, going to shit and all that, and seeing how things are going. And sometimes, even though I do not provide any legal or any financial advice ever, but I do explain to people these sort of 3.5-year cycles that they are playing with the interest rates to basically allow them to recycle their old debts so they can afford them, but then screwing us within that, the re-raising, which means that they can then decimate the middle and take it all, that's why you'll own nothing and they'll own everything, in a sense. And because the system's already crashed, they just controlled collapse is what is happening. And you're getting fisted in the process financially and, literally in some cases. And that's what's really happening. And so I'm trying to explain to people what's happening, and both in their health and their finances, in their lives and stuff like that, where to strategically sort of invest and stuff like that, and give them what I do in terms of my own investment approaches. But as I always say to people, I'm not providing any financial advice. I'm just saying that this is what I do. What you do is your problem. I had one guy come in and say, because to get silver, you can go to the Perth Mint. That's the best place. And if I was going to get anywhere between gold and silver, I'd buy more silver than gold, for the simple fact that it has more utility. Anyway, so I won't be getting any credit. I love horta, but I relied on my mother and mother-in-law to provide and prepare. I wouldn't be able to locate them in Gold Coast. Yeah, I know. It's like down here, bad luck. Dad actually sometimes, very rarely, will sometimes cook them and all that. And if I'm around, he's got a few in the fridge and I spot them, I steal them off him. Yes, I'm a bad boy. Usually he goes to me, he says, "Yeah, I've got some horta in the fridge if you want some," and I'll just take a few and put them on my plate. There's usually a stack of meat and all that, and I'll just put a few on the side just for the flavour, the old time. Yes. So yes, I know exactly what you mean. Hope not. For skin loss of buzz around. Yep. Oh yeah. Earlier Yep. There is. It's just another. At the end of the day, people think that they can eat kibble and then supplement. Really? I mean, if you were taking hyaluronic acid and you're eating kibble, at least take taurine and leucine to basically try and get some more protein synthesis. That's going to help you more than anything else. Yes, there is a lot of that in a lot of products. That's true. Is ground beef okay? Can I eat a lot of ground beef and still heal? Generally speaking, it's going to be much lower in taurine because when it's grounded, a lot of the water is gone. So you will need to supplement if you're eating that primarily. Look, I occasionally, what was it last week? I actually bought myself a whole lot of a whole pack, which was half a kilo, which is slightly over a pound of just ground beef. And I got home and I pretty much just made myself, because I've got the pork rind, some egg, pork rind, and sort of mixed all that together and just created little patties. Well, actually, they were quite large patties, and made a couple of them, fried them up, both sides and all that, and then use the because I've got a couple of so once I've fried them, I took that pan off and brought the other pan in. I did I only did 4 eggs because I had 4 big burgers, and so I like, actually, I don't know whether other people like it, I will slightly overcook the base of the egg, but I'll leave the top less cooked deliberately. So because if you don't cook enough the base, the top becomes watery. So you have to cook it slightly more. It becomes crispy, and the top it gets cooked, and the yolk hardly at all. And so you stick that on top and then you cut into it, and it just, all the yolk just sort of melts, and it's warm, yolky stuff in there. That's really nice. So I did that last week. That was nice because I'd actually got some, and it was on the day that I was working from home, which was a Wednesday, and I just did that. And I just sat here. Then I had to work after, but obviously it was just a really enjoyable meal. Brutal Holy Father Harry, I like. Bless you, my urine animal. Milk. Milk thistle, what brand and dosage recommended in general? Now, let me find the iHerb link. Oh, what am I doing? God, that's gone cold. Actually, why isn't it logging in? It's not accepting my password for fucking hell. What did I say? Updated terms and conditions. Huh? Expecting to bloody read now a whole bloody change. That's why it was holding it up. Friggin' idiotic. Probably have to go back and read it. Quick read it, just in case they've changed something. Always do, to their advantage, like all companies. This is taking longer than I... Sorry about this, guys. Trying to get my list to come up at the moment. It's note coming up. God almighty. Work, you piece of shit. Different. They've rearranged it. Why the hell did they do that? There it is. This is the one that I've used. Active Whole Spectrum Extract. Company's a pretty good company. They make really good product. They don't make crap. And it's about the 250 milligrams. There is some companies that have like 500, but this is a really good quality company in the way they make their sort of stuff. And it's only got basically plant cellulose, the capsule, no other fillers, no other crap, no nothing. Even their supplements are pretty good. They're B complex, which is what I usually do recommend to people and stuff like that. So it is one of the best products I've come across. I think it was actually started by family of a partnership of, they were vegetarians, and so they wanted to make really good products. And even their multivitamins have got a whole lot of polyphenols. They got a number of the bacteria, the lactobacillus bacterial strains. So they really make some really good top products compared to a lot of people out there in the industry. So they really put a lot of stuff at a fairly good price, and their quality of product is fairly good, is what I've found from experience myself over a number of years. That they are. And this is another company. I'll put them up as well. This is a much cheaper costing product. These people are not too bad as well. It's an Australian company. They're not too bad in the quality of their product. And this is like a high dose. If somebody's got like really severe issues with their liver, this would be useful for a short period of time together with alpha lipoic acid. But I would not recommend these high doses for a long period of time. I'm just telling you that. This is much too high. It's 3 grams. It's way too high. But if for short-term usage, like a month, yes. But for prolonged use, no. Just letting you know that that's keep that in mind. I have used this product in the past, but I only used it for about a month, and that was it. I didn't use it for any longer than that. The rest of it I threw out. Just giving you, and it is cheaper and all that, but I think that the dose is just way too high for regular use, or for mild issues with gallbladder or stuff like that. I think this is a much better dosage in that regard. So just keep that in mind. And this is the boron that I've usually got in the past. And the nice thing about it as well, which is a good thing about as well, it's also a good source of riboflavin. And it's usually people that require to normalize their hormones also have methylation issues, which is a good thing that they understand that, and they actually put riboflavin in it as well in the product. So this is a 3 milligram. but please do not go crazy any higher than that. Any higher than that needs to be done for a very short amount of time, as I said earlier. So keep that in mind. Do not do crazy things in that regard. And I might as well put the MSM powder up that I usually get for Dad. I don't get it anymore, but I do still get it for my father. And it's, has helped him. And Dad had, and it doesn't have any other ingredients other than that. It's really good for the hair, the nails, and stuff like that. Dad's nails are much better. Hair, stuff like that. I mean, mine are fine. So, as you can see, mine are, pinky, nice and pinky. They probably need a bit of cutting, but they're nice and pinky, which is what they should be in that regard. But Dad's were a bit whitish, there wasn't enough circulation. I don't know, there was a few issues there, and it just seemed that, they're much better now. But that was quite a few years back. And plus, his nails are much better, where they were actually breaking up, and there were, those, how you get those little rigid lines. As you saw, mine didn't have, none of those sort of rigid lines in them. So can be deficiencies as well, but it also can be not enough sulfur and stuff like that. Some derangements in the collagen structures that can also happen. So he's got better nails now, and pretty much we've halved his alopecia. So he still has a few areas on his scalp that don't have as much concentration of hair, but it's actually halved from what he had. He had quite a lot, far more than even me. So it has come back for him as well. So that's helped him. And I found that I just find that MSM just grows my hair far too much. So I'm willing to accept slightly thinner hair and slightly less bulky hair, where the hair mine becomes so coarse and so dense that I find it difficult to run my brush through, and it becomes annoying. Especially in the morning when I'm rushing, trying to get to work and do all that sort of stuff. I don't want to be spending a lot of time. So it's probably another thing, convenience. But, if somebody really needs it, I think you should go a bit higher in the early stages, correct the thing, and then you can drop down to a lower dose, which is what I did. But now that I'm getting enough sulfur from taurine, I don't have the oxalate dumping, because the oxalate dumping was depleting a lot of my sulfur as well. Now that sulfur issue is gone with the oxalate dumping, I don't really have to care. I can do a bit more. Yes, many lovers of ground beef. Good to see. I have a breast lump and they want to biopsy, but I said no. I'm doing thermography to watch it and see if naturopath as soon as well, hoping it goes away. Now, when it comes to tissue growth inside the prostate and the breast tissue, both those, just for everyone to know, the key cofactor for the enzymes that actually are involved in the turnover of cells, the cell proliferation and differentiation. There are enzymes that control the pathways. Those are fully regulated primarily from vitamin D. This is why vitamin D is associated with anti-cancer. Lower vitamin D, higher breast cancer, higher prostate cancer. Higher vitamin D, lower breast cancer, lower prostate cancer. It's associated. We don't have experiments because we can't lock people up in labs for the rest of their life to see whether a certain dose of vitamin D will prevent them from getting breast or basically prostate cancer. So we can't do that. It's unethical, but it's associated. And it's clear the receptor sites primarily require and retinol as a secondary cofactor for these enzymes to work properly and regulate growth within these tissues. So if you're getting growth within these tissues, whether in the prostate or in the breast tissue, female or male, the issue will be, what is your vitamin D status? If it's too low, you got a problem. You better get it up. And we're not talking about the other fella. I do that in other magical ways. It's called L-citrulline. Yes, vasodilating. The little fella down there, he behaves marvelously. Great performer. Once he has his vasodilation. You're always chilling and abusive. Better not say too much before he goes after me. He's my personal troll for the channel. Greg. Yes, I do all poultry, seafood, and no problems, but makes a big deal about ruminant animals. So was a little concerned. Happy to wait for your video. Not a problem, Greg. Look, yeah. At the end of the day, there are other options. If you take a look at the nutritional profile of some of the seafood, it shits all over, absolutely shits all over ruminant animals. But we only need a certain amount. Let's be honest about it. When it comes to the micronutrients, our thiamine requirements are halved when you're not eating carbs, because for energy production, there are two pathways that carbohydrates have to go through in order to produce, to be able to utilize those molecules that mass molecules from those macros to produce energy, where you need more. You need a number of nutrients in the greater amounts to basically do a lot of the catalytic. Well, that's enzymatic that's what it means, breaking down things or building things up, which is what enzymes do. To do that work, you need more energy, and you need the nutrients, the cofactors for those enzymes to work, because they don't work otherwise. It's like you got a truck, but you don't have a driver. The coenzyme, that cofactor, is the driver. So without those trucks, those vehicles do not work in the body, those enzymes. So it's important that we get proper nutrition. But seafood is packed with nutrition, absolutely packed in many ways. So, yeah. The only problem with seafood is, and there is some people can have sensitivities to seafood. That's where it becomes a real problem, when they have sensitivities to a lot of things. That's when I basically get them to look at things like dairy products and stuff like that. When people have sensitivity to a lot of things. But now I'm going to be coming up with some of the solutions as well, so to get beyond that stage. Okay, and Johnny, eating milk thistle, drinking, you mean? Grains, a good idea. Migraines are multiplying too fast. Well, each time you use a sieve to get so you get the you want the milk with, the bacterial strains and all that and that sort of stuff going in, and you hold on to the actual kefir grains. You don't consume those, and so you can recover them. And that's what I do. I just usually recover them, and then if they've grown too much, I'll take part of them, put them back into the actual cup, fill it up with milk, just a small amount, to basically produce more, and then I'll dump the other ones in the rubbish bin, the excess amount that have grown, the grains, or give them to a friend if they want to get into it. Yeah, I know. Look, I always try to keep the amount of grains down, so I'll actually remove part of it and throw it away, and then so I don't use as much milk, because otherwise you end up using a lot of milk. So it's cheapskate on my side to save a bit of money. Tight ass, Blame my mother. She was definitely a tight ass. Even though my father, isn't a spendthrift or anything like that, Mum was a really bloody tight ass. I know where I get my tight assness from. I'm generous with my friends, but even for myself, I struggle to basically. I've got the money, and I'm just, I'm just. Do I need it? Do you need it, Harry? I'm always asking myself that. I have to justify it to myself nearly to spend sometimes. So, yeah, I blame my mother. That woman had a profound effect on me. God have mercy on her soul. Yes, and you as well, Urine. Are you offering to assist? Is that it? To rub it on? I would think that you would have that sort of deviant mindset. I'm not surprised. This will fully charge your ATP to get rid of inflammation and fix problems. Yes, it will help. Yes, iodines, can be useful with the breast tissue as well. Very good point. Yes. Very good point about electron donating. Plus, for as Bart would say as well, and many others, walking barefoot or trying to connect to the earth will also provide you with a lot of electron donating for those purposes as well. But we still need to regulate the enzymes, and so vitamin D is essential to be able to regulate those. But I know where you're coming from when you say I'm proton heavy, but light on the electrons, and then the electron chain is being, the redox potential drops in the electron chain. I understand what you're saying, and that's because of oxidative stress. It's actually a lot of the electrons are being used for the oxidative stress issues, and so your redox potential can drop in your mitochondria. So the ability to pump more protons, even though you got more, to pump more is affected. It can be affected as well. So too much oxidative stress can actually affect that side of energy production in terms of redox potential. So I know where you're coming from and all that, but at the same time, we still need to regulate those enzymes in the body that are basically going to prevent excessive cellular proliferation. But energy is important. That's true. I'll give you that. Good point. Anyway, Danny, hi Harry. I suspect that I have issues with mold toxins building up over many years. Look, yeah, a lot of I've been exposed in the past myself, and I had issues. So I'm strict carnivore, meat, fish, eggs, and a bit of dairy. Do you have any protocol for this? I will be covering this in the future. So I've done. Look, there is some stuff that I've actually done on mold, and there is some stuff that I've done on pathogens and stuff like that. So there is a couple of videos. If you Google my name and mold, you will find a number of videos, both on the clips, in the clip things, that cover some of this information and provide some information in that regard. But I am aiming at doing a comprehensive one, and not only on mold, but a lot of exposures, heavy metals, and many other things. It's going to be a series later this year that I'm planning to do. So, but at the moment, I've got a whole lot of other things I need to do. So it's just, with a day job, it's a problem. So that is coming, but that will be later this year. So you'll have to go to those other videos and get a bit of insight in that regard. And also that calcium D-glucarate is really important to prevent reabsorption, because if you've got that problem of reabsorption, some people don't, and just getting enough, making sure they're getting enough taurine and choline to make sure that their liver and gallbladder are working properly to excrete this stuff out of the body. And you can, and sometimes, I usually will go to 3 grams. So I get 1.2 grams in real taurine, and in real choline. And then I'll have a couple of eggs, and I'll usually get about 2 grams, and that should be enough to help with the methylation systems working properly. So as long as the methylation systems, now there are some people that maybe have underactive methylation pathways in that regard. That is, I usually say to them, you need to up your riboflavin in your diet. That's really important to get that enzyme to actually work properly. I do have one on methylation. If you go and Google Harry Serpanos methylation part 1, it explains exactly what riboflavin does in order to resolve a methylation issue. So the so-called MTHFR issue, it's not a folate problem. It's not a B12 problem. It's a riboflavin problem, because some people are eating enough, but the enzyme isn't working properly. And also, choline can spare those. That's the other thing. So usually it's a choline deficiency as well. People are just not eating enough animal foods. Simple as that. I'd expect you to say something like that. How dare you? How dare you? I'll get that Newman bloke on you. He'll sort you out. He's going to be your president. Do you realise that? The media are going to plaster him all over the place. Yes, he'll sort you out. Yes, he'll be pissing all over you. You'll probably enjoy it as well. He's a bit of a deviant from what I hear. But anyone that associates with Hollywood, how can they escape that sort of level of deviancy? Yes, the demonic deviance of Hollywood. Any tips for eating on holiday in Japan? Jenny. I want my seafood. I want to have my kombucha. Yes, Jenny. Yes. Now, the problem is, if you're going to Korea, they use palm oil. In Japan, unfortunately, about 20 odd years ago, due to a trade deal with the Americans, they had to abandon palm oil, which was much safer, and they adopted seed oils from America for all their fried stuff. So you should limit fried foods in Japan. Korea is not a problem, but Japan is. On the other hand, there is astaxanthin and a low dose Toko, from the Jarrow one, Toko, which is the palm oil based vitamin E complex. Those sort of things are probably the things now, with the astaxanthin every 3 days, not every day. Otherwise, you'll get some skin discoloration, so not a good thing. So usually clears out of your system every 3 days, so you need it. If you're potentially may risk exposure to some of these foods, because you don't know. I mean, you go around, you can't be 100% certain about a lot of things, what sort of exposure level you may get to or things like that. So it's a hassle in that regard. And luckily I still have my list here, the iHerb list, and I can actually grab the product that I've used on holidays. I've still got some, it's but coconut based, so it's no crappy. What is it doing? Yep. Sorry, I put the wrong one there. Let me just grab the right one, because we want the lower, not the 12 milligrams. We want the 6 milligram one. 12 is too high. Unless you're a fish, you may need more. So that's a 6 milligram one, which, yeah, every 3 days, no more. And that has like a refreshing. This from Iceland. It's, the least problematic version, and it's also in coconut oil, not in any of the other oils that can become rancid. So it's a much more stable way of actually producing astaxanthin. And so it's one of the better products that I've come across. Not too mean, my dear, that you basically go out of your friggin' way to go on a bender in terms of inappropriateness, So do remember, there is a risk of me sending Ted. Yes, remember the bucket with the frogs and all that? Could be bad. Okay. Remember, you have to put the question in front. Not everyone's putting the question. Yes, you can get over methylation if you've got genetics for it. That's true. You can. So just keep that in mind. But, it also could mean some people that are over methylators are much more sensitive to blue light at night. So if you keep your blue light hygiene in check, you're going to get less of this problem. So, and then again, it may not be a methylation issue, it just may be a coincidence, and you may have had an exposure to COVID. And if you've had, it can actually reduce your bifidobacteria to severe levels. And if that happens, that can also cause insomnia. So just keep that in mind. So there are a lot of things that can actually cause, and sometimes, things that tend to happen at the same time. It's like the MMR and autism. They tend to happen at the same amount of time, and people associate the two. But the Japanese in what's that city again in Japan? Can't remember now. Anyway, they actually withdrew for 2 years the MMR, and the kids' autism rate still kept on going up. Actually, when they reintroduced it the first year, it actually went down a bit. But that's just one of those variabilities. Nothing, not that the actual MMR did anything, because it's just a deactivated version of the actual virus. So why would it have any effect? We are interacting with millions and millions of viruses every day. So, that's why I never bought into that. The other nonsense stuff, the experimental actual gene therapy, is not a vaccine, it's a gene therapy that was actually introduced for the C19. Well, that's not the same. So let's not get the two confused in that regard. Now, there are other issues with anaphylaxis because some people have egg allergies, and they do a number of these things were produced in eggs. So that's another issue. So it doesn't mean that people are not affected. Let's be honest, people are affected. They've got varied sensitivities in their bell curve. But we need to be cognizant of that at least we have a population study of withdrawing something and not seeing any change. If there had been a change, then we'd say, yes, definitely that causes that problem. But when something is not associated anymore, it cannot be causal. Something has to always associate, like tobacco, and in epidemiology, that is, has to always associate it in order to infer causality. So very important principle in science. So, look, I was worried about the MMR as well. I'd actually told people in early days. And then I said, I better look into it before I start saying to people it may not be a good idea. And then when I looked into it, I realised, not an issue. So you've got to sometimes look into things. There's a lot of competing. As I said, association is not causation just because something associates. Do I have a what? G'day, Lewis. Do you have a Google Doc compiling all the different supplements you recommend? No, I don't. I just have to go onto my iHerb. I've got a list. You're able to, like even on Amazon, you can actually create your own list of favorites. Same thing. I just create that, and I just had to go through, and I've got a number of levels for a lot of different, and I had to go right through. I probably should have something with all, like a document or something like that, an actual document of my own. Good idea, actually. I should have thought of it myself, but it's just lazy. It's against iHerb. So usually most of the times is people leave comments or that, and I'll just go quickly into it. But maybe for the live streams, because today we've had a lot of questions and a lot of links that people wanted. It's usually unusual to get so many in that regard. No, I tend to not. I tend to basically say to people, get it from the diet. Get it from the diet, I mean, if you take like mussels, which is a crustacean, it's got heaps and heaps and heaps of B12. So I can't see the reason for supplementing. There's no reason to supplement. Even if somebody's vegetarian, they can actually eat mussels. It's not against their ideology or whatever. Vegans is probably a different thing, but if you're still doing veganism, well, get over it. There's no reason to it. There's not one vegan society anywhere in the world, and there's no anywhere a multi-generational vegan society. Never existed, never will, because of the high level of deficiencies. Most vegans can't survive beyond 5 years, and most may be able to push it beyond that, and that's just because they supplement like mad and they cheat. And we know they cheat because once they get out of the vegan cult, they tell us they cheat. So it's not doable, and their hormones are in the toilet, so they can't reproduce. That's why you can't get 5 generations. Vegetarians, different things. They're very dairy heavy. As I did a blue zone one, and I do cover this. And Gundry, who's a cardiologist who was out at Loma Linda, and he said when he was there back in the 70s, This is 60s, 50s, 70s in the past. Their original was 50% dairy. 50% dairy is the original vegetarian diet. Shouldn't be called a vegetarian, or should be called a dairy diet, because it was 50%. And the rest of it was coming from eggs, a proportion, and some was coming, and so the amount of plant matter would vary between 45% to basically down to 15%. It would vary quite a bit depending on how many animal foods they were eating. They just weren't eating ruminants. They weren't eating, those others, but they were eating eggs, dairy, and some of them were eating fish, the pescatarians type, So that's really the real vegetarian diet, because back then everything was seasonal and most animal products were all year round available, not like now where we've got refrigeration, we can store things for years and provide people with fruit and anything they want all year round, or we can transport it from the southern and store it for a number of months. So you go from the southern or northern hemisphere back and forward. Yes. So that's how it operates now. Days. I'll just bring this up for a sec. Put this on the screen. Okay, B12. So just go on the food list and actually provides you all that. So B12, as an example. So when we're looking, oops. What is it doing? Clams. So clams have heaps, just 100 grams. 100 grams is 3.53 ounces, 3.5 ounces plus. And you're getting basically 4,000%. Oysters, 1,000%. Mussels, 850%. Just from 3 ounces. That's even less than 100. So just having mussels once a week is going to give you pretty much all your requirement for the whole week, let alone scallops, pretty high as well. Tuna, 100 grams, 3.53 ounces, 450%. You're getting basically 4.5 days worth. Herring, even higher, 798%. Mackerel is phenomenally high, 1,346. Sardines, these are canned, even canned stuff is high. And I know that actually fresh sardines are even higher. So all these. King crabs, fairly high. Shrimps, not as high, but you have 6 ounces, you'll get 100%. Beef, 3.53 ounces is 3 days worth. So oops, which is 170. Let me just show you, divided by 28.6 ounces. Okay, 6 ounces, 170 grams. So if we divide that by 100, we'll get 1.7 times 3.14. You'll get about 5 times your requirement just by having 6 ounces of meat. There is no way on a carnivore diet you can't get enough B12. You can get shitloads, you know? And the same thing with all these things. Fortified crap, ignore that. Fortified, it's all fortified, all these, because it doesn't exist in these plants. Fortified tofu. They just, it's all that. Milk isn't a good source. A good source, but if you're having a glass of milk, like a 16-ounce glass of milk, you get 108%. You'll get all. This is why vegetarians are fine, because they were so dairy high, and dairy in milk is much lower, but in cheese it's very concentrated. So once you look at cheeses, we'll go to the cheeses, as you can see, just 100, 128. So. And that's 100 grams, you'll get 128%. So you can have just a small amount of cheese as a vegetarian, and you've got all your daily dose. As long as your stomach is working properly and you can absorb things, you're getting all the stuff you need just from cheese. 100 grams, or even having 3 ounces, which is 85 grams. So let's go. What's it doing? So 85 divided by 100. I just use, whatever. I had a blonde moment. So even 3 ounces is going to give you basically 109%, just having a bit of cheese. So, unless you've got malabsorption issues or whatever, you can't get a deficiency. So eggs, 2 eggs, 4 eggs will give you 100%, nearly. 5 eggs will definitely give you 100%. So one large egg, the large eggs are the ones, when you get a container and it's 700, so 700 grams, or the 600 grams is more this one. And so if you basically have the larger eggs, pretty much, but 5, you're getting 115%, 5 eggs, and you've got all your daily amount. It can actually vary the amount that you get from different types. As you can see, hard-boiled is less, scrambled is more. So when you cook the egg, like you fry it or scramble it, you actually get more B12 than when you hard-boil them. Most people don't realize that. They think hard-boiled, they're going to get more. It's the other way around, actually. Luckily, I like fried eggs with butter. Love them. So it's extremely easy. And, these are the, pork, the livers are obviously, the livers are the high. But look at octopus. Octopus, 3.5 grams octopus, 1,500%. I like octopus. I occasionally have it. And so, even salami is a pretty good source, nearly 100%, 3 ounces. So it's impossible to be deficient in B12 if you're eating animal foods. It's really easy to get, guys. It's not difficult. Even vegetarians, unless they've got malabsorption issues or whatever, that's why they can reproduce, because they still can get it. So you can actually go right down here where it's got the nutritional from the nutritional ranking tools, and you go high, B12, and this brings you to another screen with the tool system for those who want to do more refinements in their searching, and get more stuff that they can go through in that regard. So we can go not household. We don't want household. So we want high. We don't want to choose serving in terms of household or calories. That's a measurement of heat for some of you out there. So we only want to go with the mass of the food, 100 grams. And these are also brands. You can actually check commercial brands. There's like 4,653. A lot of that's going to be fortified, obviously. And the others are the standard stuff and the common foods. And so, and you can go through that, or you can actually pick not all food. You can just go, okay, I want to check to see, the dairy and eggs. And I'm just going to check on that, the dairy and eggs for B12. So somebody's a vegetarian, they want to check and see how can I get the best amount, and then you go through and look at all these things. As you can see, the cheeses are going to be the top when it comes to the dairy, as I said earlier. Cheeses and eggs, or egg powders and stuff like that, which we don't want. Wheys are pretty good. Whey powder and stuff like that is a fairly good source. Things like mozzarella and many others. Egg yolks are very higher than the whites, and so on in that regard. Fat is not too bad at 100 grams, which is 3.53 ounces, getting about 70%, and many of that. And so brie, very similar to feta, and I like brie. Yes, s'il vous plaît. Anyway, so it is not difficult to get your B12. So anybody goes, how can I get my B12? Do I need a supplement? No, you don't need a supplement. Just eat animal foods. There is more than enough to get, Karen. So yeah, do not, because the problem is with a lot of these supplements of B12 is they come from, a lot of them come from these waterways where they have a lot of potential, the algal stuff, and the way it's processed can actually introduce a whole lot of other things that could be potentially deleterious long-term to your health. Now, if you're having malabsorption issues, you're not absorbing properly and all that, that's a health issue you need to fix. What do we produce inside the stomach to heal the stomach so we can absorb nutrients way better and break food down so we can absorb it then from the intestine? Simple. BPC 157. Body protection compound 157 is what is produced in the stomach. So to have proper stomach acid and functioning of your stomach to be able to absorb B12 and anything like that. If you've had issues of pernicious anemia, it tells me you've got insufficiency in the capacity of your stomach, and you need to fix that. And the best way is what I said earlier about the BPC 157. You take it for, so B as in Bob, P for Peter, C for cat, hyphen 157. Just go to the Amazon, because depending on where you are in the world, you get different type of, so you have to do it yourself, because I don't know where you are in the world. And so you will be given exactly a link to your local supplier or whatever, and then you can actually look on the other ones. So there are two forms, the injectable type and the oral one. For people that have got like what I call just general issues, like in particular the digestive tract from the mouth to the anus, the collagen structures of that need to be healed. The oral one is fine, is the one to take. So you take 60 tablets. So you do it for 2 months, you stop for 3 months, and then you do another 2 months. And if you've healed, you don't take it unless you've got an injury the following year. which is related to connective tissue or whatever, things like that. Now, if it's like a severe thing like an arthritic knee or whatever, then you may have to look at injectables directly into the site. That complicates things because you may need to be able to use somebody who knows how to inject unless you're trained in injecting. So that's not, I can't give you any advice on how to inject yourself because my mother knew how to, I don't. I'm not skilled at that, and I'm not going to take responsibility for other people. You need to consider, you could always take it to your doctor or and have that. No hard logic. I would not recommend it long term because of the angiogenesis, producing new blood vessels. Fine if you've got an injury to basically try to get nutrients in and actually to deal with the fibrotic tissue that's actually created to heal it faster. That's fine, but we don't want to basically be causing too much of this in our bodies because we don't have enough research to basically give a recommendation, an efficacious recommendation, which is safe for people. And the most important thing is do no harm. Oh, my bad. I meant for during the 2 months. No, I actually, the dose is about 500 micrograms. That's the dose that I actually am fine with for that period of time. I prefer a bit more. Some people will take a bit more than that, as long as it's just the dosing depends. Some people will take a bit more, some people take less, depends on the severity of the injury or whatever, and there is a cost. Obviously, if you're taking it 3 times a day like some people do where they've got severe injury, then those people are going to be basically spending a lot of money on this. If you've got something which is a digestive tract, you only need 1 a day, 1 tablet a day for the 2 months, and then a follow-on. In particular, if things have improved, you may not do a follow-on. But if it's still not 100%, you do a follow-on after 3 months. Yeah, there is a cost involved in all that. Yeah, but thanks for putting it up. Just there. Seafood is going to be the thing that I've already shown you that, but seafood is going to be the stuff that's high in taurine. So I've actually done videos. Just Google Harry Serpanos and taurine, and you'll find videos on my site that actually talk about the foods and how much is in the different foods. So I've already covered that. So yes, I thought you guys were absolutely, perfect at Googling things. God, I'll have to have a talk with my friends at Google about you, Johnny. Expect a conversation about your lack of ability to use their search engine. How dare you? You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm getting to the stage towards the end of the damn thing. I'm becoming comical. The old boy is becoming comical. Yep, not a problem. Do so. Yeah, but yeah, as I said, it's for people that have got gastrointestinal things or things. It's really easy by using the oral stuff. But yeah, injuries, yeah, it's complicated, just damn complicated. How to deal with it. Well, Troy Bart did use the product, and he recovered pretty fast in that regard. So, and a number of other people have spoken to me about it as well, and they've had actually good results as well. So, we can only go on this sort of stuff. So if I came across it a bit earlier, and that was, but like Bart, he came across it but wasn't talking about it because I had no experience with the product. I was going to buy it to test it on myself or Dad or stuff like that in that regard. But then Bart sustained an injury, tested it, and said it works. I go, okay, that's interesting, because we've only got animal studies. We've got no they're just now. There's talk about doing human trials, and there's a few trials that have been registered, but they haven't happened. So we don't know about side effects. We don't know about anything. There's a lot of speculation about things. But then when you look at the overall literature, when we go back on the stomach production of BPC 157 for ulcers and things like that, because it was more for that it was the focus in the past, where people had severe ulcers and they would supplement something like this. And it was only naturopaths that knew about it and actually were able to administer it with injectables in that regard. So it was a very different type of situation back then. But now that there is actual products out there and more information coming through, I'm convinced that it has. I've seen a lot of people that I've put on within my close friends and family that have taken it. I've seen a lot of good results with them. Now I'm confident enough to recommend it to my subscribers. So, I've seen Bart had good results without any side effect problems. I've noticed other people, family members and friends, have had good effects without any problems. And now I'm slowly bringing it to you guys for the simple reason that I'm confident if it hasn't hurt my family and friends, but didn't get affected either in any, but only in a positive way, I'm going to myself, well, why should I hold off not letting other people know about it? And now I've become even more than Bart promoting it in that regard, for the simple reason that he's only tested on himself. I've tested on a lot of people that I know, including myself, my father, and many people. I've only done a bit because I gave most of my stash to Dad when he got his injury, so I only ended up doing about 3 or 4 tablets. But I can say that I had a bit of like one of my toes that I jammed in the door, and it seemed to heal a bit faster than the last time I actually injured my toe. So that's anecdote. It's not, but that's only 4. Maybe it's a placebo effect for me. I don't know. And then I just gave the rest of the stash all to Dad. So I'll buy some later on if I need it for anything. I don't need to experiment unless I get an injury. That's when I'll buy some. At the moment, I don't need it because I don't have an injury. But if I get an injury, yes, I'll probably do the same. Dad had issues. He's used it. Bart had issues. A number of these other people have. But it's shocking. Even this Hello Kitty, my neighbour, her mum, she had a number of health issues and still has. She's getting better and better. She's become more low carb with more animal foods, but she's been taking BPC 157, and a lot of her digestive stuff has settled and sorted itself out, and many other things, aches and pains and a few other issues that she was having. They've been resolved. She was having some eye problems and all sorts of things. And then all of a sudden, just recently, I find out that her shoulder that she'd injured years ago when she was much younger, multiple, I think 30 odd years ago, no longer hurts. It no longer hurts her anymore. And she's going, wow. So she's shocked as well. So am I. 30-year injury, completely resolved. I can understand a fresh injury. I didn't realize that it could actually even heal old injuries in somebody who's in their early 70s. Okay, we're not talking about a spring chicken here, some young people, a whippersnipper. We're talking about an elderly person in their 70s with a number of underlying health issues that are just now being resolved. And she was going sort of blind in but the taurine also helped there as well for the eyes. But she was losing her eyesight. So, and the doctors couldn't do anything in Hong Kong for her. So I'm one of her big fans now because I've given her back her eyesight and improved a lot of other things in her body. So I'm very much a fan. Whenever she chats with her daughter, usually tells her daughter to pass on regards from, so I always get sort of regards from her mum. It's nice. It's nice that she's doing well and, her quality of life is improved. And she's also able to go back and work because she was working because, you don't get the sort of social benefits like we get in Western countries. They don't. And so her husband's got health problems, but he's obstinate. He's like his other daughters. He does, the doctors are always right. He won't change even though his wife's improving. But he has made a few changes, but without admitting to it. He does it secretly. Anyway, at least he's getting better. Slightly, he's getting some benefit. Maybe he'll put aside his own biases and try some of this sort of stuff that his wife has, and she's had good results. So, anyway, guys, since we're at the low, we don't have many other questions. I'm going to pull the plug. It's nearly 4 hours. It's been a long session, this one. And I have to get ready for this afternoon, which is only about an hour and a half from now. So I need to get my shit together and be somewhere else. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks for all the questions, because without questions, live streams don't have a reason to exist. I do absolutely appreciate the participation, because you guys make this channel possible, make this channel, without questions, it just doesn't work. So I do appreciate your contributions and, just bring them on. I enjoy any sort of question, even stuff that I may not be 100% about I haven't looked into. It brings it to my attention. I will look into it. I'm that sort of person. And when you come back, I will give you a bit of a spew about it, and I'll give you some insights that you may have not known. So no question is a wrong question. No question is a bad question. All questions are welcomed. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Thanks, Richard. Always a pleasure, mate. Thanks for your support as well over the years. Appreciate it, Nathan. Troy, always a pleasure. Take care. Yes. Keep away from that other fella. Dangerous fella. Hopefully he never becomes president. But anyway, that's it. Thank you and have a good day, and I will see you in a fortnight time. Take care. See yous.